Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about What If Naruto Brother of Akino Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. A warm feeling filled his chest as his eyes slowly opened once again, taking in the deep ocean blue water around him as he floated there. No difficulty breathing whatsoever, no heavy weight on his chest from what should be the starting feelings of pressure pushing on his body. The boy we were watching was a teen, one that had recently turned 16, his toes tilted downwards yet still only barely touching what seemed to be a sheet of glass extending out, further and further beyond the realm of possibility. "What are we doing today, Naruto?" A voice chimed as a small light blue orb appeared, hovering in front of the face of the teen. The teen, now known to be Naruto, lifted his left hand up and batted the orb away lightly. "The same thing we did yesterday, Alpha, and the day before that, and the day before that." "Ah, yay!" Alpha was the name of Naruto's sacred gear. It was only after he fell though that he had been able to unlock it. That was by spending copious amounts of time looking deep inside of himself as his body rested and healed in the tank that contained him. He had long since lost track of how long he had been inside of here, and if it wasn't for Alpha he may have driven himself to the point of insanity. Then again he was talking to a glowing orb that apparently lived inside of his body. Inwardly he sighed. Wasn't hearing voices like one of the possible signs of insanity? Naruto clenched his fist tight and pursed his lips slightly. His body felt tense, yet he couldn't tell why. Something must be happening on the outside. It irritated him to no end that he couldn't see outside of his body anymore. Shaking his head lightly, he looked at Alpha, who seemed to be trying to figure out what he was thinking by staring at his face. Was it even possible for a glowing orb with nothing that could resemble an eye to stare? "What are you doing?" "Well, Naruto, I learned by studying everything around me. Currently you are frustrated at your own inability. Though you really shouldn't be, seeing as with me by your side we could be unbeatable." Naruto gave a dull nod as he rubbed at the back of his head before sitting down on the glass panel below him. He was about to start practicing with Alpha again, only for a bright light to shine down on him as a bullet flew right past his face, causing him to blink in shock. "Oh look, we are waking up, Naruto. I guess things are going to be different from yesterday after all." Bubbles rose to the top of a tank. It was filled with light blue water, helping to support the life inside of it. Standing before the tank was a young boy with blonde hair and gray eyes, a small mole under his left eye as he looked at the floating body inside. It was his half-brother, older by 2 years. From what he could remember they had the same mother, yet there was no father for Naruto, at least that is what their mother proclaimed over and over. His brother was named Naruto, while the younger one had been given the name of Kiba. Kiba placed his hand against the glass between them. He hadn't spoken to Naruto in months. Well, he hadn't heard a response. He had spoken to his brother, but the older blonde hadn't been able to respond. "Things aren't looking good, Naruto. Valper is going mad and everyone is scared. I don't know if you can hear me, brother, but I don't know how much longer we will remain here." There was a knocking at the door and Kiba turned on his feet, missing the twitching of Naruto's brows. The large metal door slid open and showed men covered in black. Large tanks on their backs were plugged into steel frames in their arms that spewed flames. "Target sighted," came a muffled voice from the man in front as he raised his gun to Kiba's face. The young blonde widened his eyes in shock as he moved backwards, tripping over as a bullet flew past from someone in the back, hitting the container that his brother was in. "Check your aim. Do not hit the containment tube." The glass cracked and that long crack from the bullet spread out like a spiderweb, covering the entire front as Naruto's eyes snapped open, a chilling icy blue that seemed to glow even in the brightly lit room. The armored men froze in place. This 16-year-old scared them to death. Even the scientists that worked with him every day didn't understand what he was. The tubes in his back disconnected and bubbles quickly filled the tank, blocking the view of Naruto. "He's awake! Fire, fire!" Bullets and flames filled the room and Kiba crouched over, trying to make himself as small as possible. Though he didn't feel anything, he would at the least expect it to be hot, even if everything was missing him, yet there was nothing. Pulling the hands away from his head, he looked up and saw a large silver shield blocking everything away from him. "I won't forgive anyone that tries to harm my family," came a cold voice across the ruckus of the room. Kiba widened his eyes in shock, only to feel a hand land on his shoulder in a comforting manner. He turned to see Naruto standing there. His scar over his heart still remained, those strange marks on his face along with his toned body that showed he used to work hard and would no doubt return to doing such things. His other hand extended out, opening with a flat palm. The shield that had been protecting them extended in width and height before large spikes came out of the front, and it surged forward, crushing the enemies through into the hall behind them, running them over and clearing a path as a second one formed in front of Naruto, who grabbed onto the handle and fixed it onto his arm. Naruto spared a glance at his younger sibling. His face was full of questions. I have a sacred gear, it just took me a lot longer to unlock it than you did, Kiba. Naruto patted Kiba lightly on the back before stepping forward and blocking a large barrage of bullets that flew at them. You should stay close. I plan on pushing them all out the front door. Kiba nodded and stepped into his older brother's shadow. He felt so much better now that Naruto was here, even if he had more questions that still needed to be answered. When their parents passed away, Naruto stood up and looked after them until he started to fall ill, which led them to this place. This hell. He wondered what kind of sickness it could have been for Naruto to have been in that test tube for so long, but now he seemed to be fine, as if nothing had happened. He was back to being Kiba's guiding light. His hair was a little longer, which was to be expected seeing as he unable to move for months. It now came down to the middle of his back in a rough-looking mane. Kiba held back a small chuckle as he ran behind his brother. He wondered how all these grown men felt being tossed to the side by a teen in his underwear? Embarrassed, shocked, and full of shame hopefully. They quickly came to the main hall. The stench that filled the air was heavy. Naruto tossed his shield forward and blocked the only entrance other than the one they just came through up. While it would protect them, it was also sealing the foul smell inside with them. Naruto didn't need to look around to know what it was. God damn it, it's freezing. Naruto whined loudly as his bare feet patted around on the tiles below him. We'll keep moving soon. I just need to get some clothes before I freeze myself to death outside. Can you keep an eye out for me, Kiba? Oh, okay, I can do that. Kiba gave a small nod as he summoned a small dagger and held it in the ready as his eyes scanned the room. His breath seemed to be stuck in his throat as he continued to look, making sure that nothing was able to sneak up on them while Naruto was busy. A couple of minutes passed, and the elder blonde came back. He was in a pair of ripped jeans, a tight black muscle shirt, and what seemed like it was once one of the black shirts that the older males were wearing torn and draped around his neck and shoulders as a muffler or scarf, if you will. He pulled it down a little and gave a warm smile to Kiba. Let's keep moving, brother. Can you make me a sword? Kiba gave him a questioning glance before slowly nodded and making a strong steel blade for his older brother, only to see a shield hovering in front of him. He took it without question as he handed the blade to Naruto, who gave it a few swings. It feels just like the one I used to use at home. I used to use it when you were studying. I'm sore. Don't worry about it, Kiba. It's natural for people to get curious, right? Naruto gave a small shrug as he fastened the shield on his arm. It was sturdy. The large shield that was blocking the door was blown off from where it had been secured and flew straight at the brothers. Kiba stiffened as Naruto stepped forward, his blade glowing ever so slightly as he let out a slash at the coming shield, splitting it in half and letting the metal go flying either side of the two, his icy eyes staring in the direction from where the attack came. Standing there was an older male, possibly in his 30s, his hands having a strange glow of light. A smile was stretched across his face as he gently pushed his glasses up his nose. My, we seem to have a few kiddies out past their bedtime. Allow me to tuck you both in. Naruto gave a small smirk as he twirled the blade around in his hand. Sorry, but I don't swing that way. I mean, I know what some of you priests are like and I prefer not to treat the holy snake. I can def on it though if you want. You stupid little fuck. What the hell do you think you're doing screwing around like this? Naruto, maybe it wasn't such a good idea to say that, Kiba murmured softly, an uneasy look on his face. The blonde in question though gave a small chuckle. What are you talking about? Naruto pointed his blade at the man and gave a warm smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. They were cold, never leaving the man. I mean, I guess you're right. Priests like it better from younger boys. It would mean more if it came from you, Kiba. Kiba paled and shrunk a little behind Naruto, never noticing how Naruto changed his stance to block Kiba off completely from the man. Naruto clicked his tongue lightly and took a small step forward. The priest clenched his fists tightly, the edges of his lips twitching up ever so lightly, as if he was taunting Naruto. The elder blonde took a step forward and heard the door on the other side of the room swing open, the path from which they had come from, the area that Naruto had pushed everyone out of, yet somehow someone came out of there. From his back sprouted a pair of pure black feathered wings. Now that was something different. The feeling he gave off was chilling. He grit his teeth, shifting himself and Kiba backwards, positioning them in a way that had the two of them in Naruto's line of sight at the same time. The strange wingman let a smirk crawl across his face. These two are different gear holders. The older one is pretty sharp too, not to mention his eyes. The one with wings is a fallen angel, Naruto. Father wasn't happy with what they did, so he banished them, ripping the feeling of peace and safety from their bodies. Careful though, they can be dangerous. Naruto gave a small nod to the voice inside of him, tightening his fist slightly around the blade in his hand as he felt a strange energy swirl inside of him like a raging maelstrom. He flicked it around lightly, an arc of energy trailing behind the cold steel as he swapped it to a reverse grip before flying forward with a sprint. the likes of which caused the fallen to widen his eyes slightly before summoning a spear and using it to block the spinning strike of Naruto, which would have gutted him on the spot. He doesn't hold back, not an ounce of hesitation. Father, why don't you deal with the other naughty child? The fallen questioned, and the priest moved to make good on the request, only to be cut off as a sharp shield nearly took of his head. Sorry, but I am a bit of a glutton, Naruto remarked with a smile of steel. I think I will be dealing with both of you, otherwise I couldn't quite live with myself. Oh, I like you, boy, though I think you may have bitten off a bit more than you can handle. The angel stepped forward, pushing Naruto back and shattering the blade in his hand, causing him to curse. With his shield gone, he had nothing to protect himself with, thus he jumped back, dodging the spear ever so slightly and watching it tear through his top. Landing on his feet with a small slid, Naruto let out a small groan. I just stole this shirt too. Inwardly, though, he was sweating. That was way too close for comfort. Alpha, can we make something strong enough to fight against that spear? Well, maybe. Your shield should stop the spear, though with your body right now, I don't know. The orb hummed slightly as if it was thinking, why didn't I think of that? Picture a spear forming, just like the fallen had. Naruto pursed his lips slightly. Okay, but when this fails, give me something new. He stretched his fingers out, feeling the strange energy move as if he was controlling it before forming a spear, just like the one in front of him. Alpha, I think we are going to need to have a talk after this. Naruto, less talking, more fighting. The fallen stood with a brow risen high. Well, aren't you something? A human that can control light. I really like you, boy. Sorry, the feeling isn't mutual, Naruto spoke in a sing-song voice before dashing forward again, forming another shield on his arm as he did and pushing the fallen's spear to the side before he thrust his own forward, only to feel something push his strike out to the side. It was a second spear. Okay, I feel like calling cheating on you now. The fallen saw how Naruto's eye kept going to where the priest was every few seconds as they held that position before he lifted his foot and planted it into the blonde's chest, sending him flying backwards. Call me a cheater if you want, but I feel like you deserve some credit if you want to protect that other child so much. Go for it. I won't fight you until you finish dealing with the priest. Naruto pursed his lips slightly. The fallen seemed to be the bigger threat. That much was certain to him right now. He was fast, probably even more so than Naruto, as the blonde hardly saw him move before he was able to block. Father, do I have your word that you won't move from that spot until I finish my fight here? This caught the others by surprise, but the fallen merely widened his smile. Oh? Was my offer not good enough for you? Sorry, but I am not exactly going to trust someone who fucked up and was kicked out of heaven because of it. Fallen angel Naruto gave a slight nod of his head as a second spear formed in his left hand, the straps of the shield pinning it tight to his arm now to give him the ability to dual wield. And here I thought that you children were not taught about the supernatural. The fallen trailed before shrugging his shoulders lightly. Very well, father, do not move from your position until I finish killing this one. If you do, I will kill you myself. You understood. Naruto Kiba trailed, looking at his older brother. Naruto crossed his spear over one another and gave a smirk to the fallen in front of him. Now you have my full attention. He dashed forward again, watching as the fallen lightly tossed his spear and angling his shield for the spear to bounce off of it as he moved. Quickly closing the distance, he stabbed forward with his spear, meeting the sound of it striking another before doing the same with his other, and hearing the same sound. The fallen had created another in the time it had taken for Naruto to close the distance. Without taking time to think, Naruto ducked down, letting go of the spear on his shield arm and barging forward before striking the fallen with the point on the end of his shield, ignoring the blood that spluttered onto his face and the look of shock on the man in front of him. You little brat! The fallen retorted as his wings flared before firing a barrage of feathers at Naruto and exploding. Kiba watched as the fire engulfed his brother in shock. Naruto, to see him taken down so easily was just. His thoughts were cut when a spear shot out of the fire and struck the angel in the chest as Naruto jumped back, his feet sliding across the floor as blood poured out of his chest. A thin metal slowly worked its way over his body, seemingly sealing up the holes he had acquired along with the burns. His hand was extended outwards in the direction of the spear, then with a seemingly large amount of force working against him, he stretched his hand into an open palm, causing the spear to explode just like he had moments earlier due to the feathers. I can't believe that worked. Yeah, we are going to be having a nice long talk after this, Alpha, Naruto spoke aloud, causing confusion to cross Kiba's face, along with a large amount of relief. Naruto reached down and touched his stomach. He was going to grip it tightly to see how bad the pain was, but Alpha had already covered his injuries with metal and started repairing his internal ones with his light, as the floating orb called it. His training in his mind may have very well have saved him there, having been able to create a very thin shield in front of his body to take the majority of the blow before it erupted. Even still, it had done a large amount of damage to him. He grit his teeth, watching as the cloud of smoke lifted, showing a battered and bruised fallen angel glaring daggers at him. You are actually starting to piss me the fuck off, brat. Hee hee, ouch, don't make me laugh you. Though it serves you right for looking down on us. Naruto took a small step back and summoned up 2 spears again, a third one appearing moments later in his mouth. He spared a glance to Kiba. Seeing his younger brother fumble the blade in his hand lightly, he had to try his hardest not to shake his head. Why the hell did he have to fumble at that moment? He made it look as if he couldn't protect himself. Now Naruto would subconsciously worry about him, even if he knew better. Naruto slashed at the spear that came towards him, creating a concave shield in front of its flight path to block the blast if it did explode. Without pause he moved forward, blocking another spear and repeating the process before getting close enough that he could stab his right spear into the ground and take the one out from his mouth and use it. Another appearing a moment later in his mouth again as he twirled and stabbed them into the ground again and again around the fallen before skidding along the ground under his feet and planting 2 small spears made of light into them, pinning him to the ground. Without waiting he moved away and stretched his hands out, causing a massive explosion, the force of which would be amplified on the fallen in the middle of it as it came from all directions. Again Naruto had to wait for the cloud to settle only to find that the fallen was well and truly dead. He was not recovering from that. He let out a pant as he struggled to try to catch his breath. There was a loud crack and Naruto's eyes shot out wide as something entered his body. He looked down and saw blood leaking out of a hole where his heart should be. With wide eyes he turned to the priest in shock. In his hand was a gun pointed at Naruto and a deranged smile on his face. Kiba's mind froze. Naruto had won. Without any shadow of a doubt his brother bested a fallen angel, whatever the hell that was, yet the priest shot him? He grit his teeth and ran forward, his dagger in hand as he let out a roar of emotional pain. He just couldn't understand why things had to happen like this. He blocked the gunshot with his shield that Naruto had given him before he approached and slapped the man in the side with it. Though because of his lack of strength it did next to nothing. Shaking his head in frustration he thrust his dagger forward, feeling it puncture flesh and his stomach churn at the thought of what he had just done before pulling it out and stabbing him again, and again and again. Even as the priest started to fall to the ground, Kiba didn't stop. He let his instincts take over and just needed to make sure the man paid for what he did. There was a loud crunch, and the body seemed to fall limp. Snapping his head around, Kiba turned to look at his older brother, watching him struggle to sit up. He looked up to Kiba and gave a warm smile before his eyes widened and his hand shot out, forming a shield behind his brother. Mere moments before a thundering impact was heard. Kiba slowly turned and from the corner of his eye he saw the priest on the other side of the shield, a sword of light in his shaking hands. "You should have just let us kill you both. It would have made this so much easier on everyone." Naruto let out a small chuckle before wincing as he stood, taking a small stride forward and stumbling a little before he dragged his feet, feeling his blood leak out with each step, though he was able to close the distance. The priest tried to pull his hand away. Finding out that the task appeared to be impossible, he was locked in place. The shield had extended metal tendrils of a sort to bind his arm to it, keeping him from moving. He peered around the shield and saw the blonde standing there, blood seeping from both his chest and his mouth as his shoulders hung down along with one of his limp arms. His left was stretched outward, pointing towards the priest as light formed on its tips. "I know you pricks have a thing for stabbing little boys with your swords, but get the fuck away from my little brother." 5 thin beams of light shot from his fingertips and struck the priest, flinging him against the far wall before turning his body to ash, his screams following the actions the entire time. A cough racked the body of Naruto, sending him to his knees as blood splattered on the floor in front of him. "Naruto!" Kiba exclaimed, quickly rushing to his side and holding onto him tightly. The elder blonde though rubbed his younger brother's head lightly. "Well, I guess I got to come back in an explosive way, Kiba?" Said child went to respond only to feel the hand on his head stop and the body in his arms slump fully. Kiba clutched Naruto tighter, holding him close, turning his head ever so lightly as he heard the sound of steps coming. Without a second thought he summoned a blade into his hand and turned to face where it was coming from. His eyes narrowed as he took in the red-haired girl before him. "Leave me alone. Sorry, but I want to give you and your brother a new lease on life." Kiba widened his eyes at her words, looking down at the form of his brother before meeting her seafoam gaze. "What's your name?" Rias Gremry." Naruto let out a groan as he sat up, which was strange. He didn't think that he would feel tired or pain once he was dead, yet here he was, feeling both of those. His eyes slowly opened and he came face to face with a pair of near pink eyes and long silky black hair that framed what happened to be a very cute face. Era, you should rest a while longer. You were quite injured when you were brought here." "Ah, to have someone like you looking after me, I must be in heaven," he teased lightly, one of his eyes checking the bandages wrapped tightly around his body. It was quite clear, at least to him, that he was more than likely still alive. "Actually, we are in the underworld." His face paled slightly at her words. Okay, maybe he was not alive still. He gave her a curious glance. I have a feeling that I am either missing a few pieces of information or when they call alcohol the devil's juice they really aren't joking. The cute girl lifted her hand up to cover her mouth before giving a light chuckle. We should wait for my master to return before delving too much deeper into this conversation. Naruto gave a small nod, searching himself inwardly and externally. Alpha, if things turn sour, how would we go right now? He paused, waiting for the reply. Naruto, it is good that you are up. We are not in good shape, though in saying that, we are also in the best shape we have ever been. The blonde rose a brow at that. Okay, slow down and explain, Alpha. It is simple, your dormant powers from your father have started to awaken. Wait, what are you talking about? Naruto-san? Akino questioned. The boy that was previously stuck in what seemed to be a deep thought suddenly spoke, though it didn't seem like it was directed at you. Naruto held up his hand and narrowed his eyes on her. Can't you see that I'm in the middle of something here? I will just sit here then, carry on, Akino mumbled out, her eyes more than a little wide as the blonde gave a sharp nod and glared at a piece of lint on the bed. If looks could kill, that lint had traveled to the sun by this point. As I was saying, Naruto, and do listen this time, you are a child of light argh. Why don't you believe me? Fine, picture wings on your back, just do it, come on, why won't you do it? Naruto rubbed at his temples. This was a headache coming, he already knew it. Focusing on his shoulders, he felt a strange energy build up, almost like a burning sensation before it finally broke, like a wrecking ball tumbling through a wall. He was, in fact, forced to lean forward a little as it burst from his shoulders. He felt the bed under him shatter and saw the cute girl jump back and glide through the air as she landed on the other side of the room. Her eyes were wide, so much so that they looked as if they could burst from her head at any moment. Before her was a pair of large devil wings. That much she had expected, well, not quite yet, but once he knew what had happened she figured he would try to call them forth. It was what rested underneath them, 2 feathered wings, as white as snow, resting directly below his devil ones. She bit the inside of her lip as the door slammed open with Rias leading the group. Kaneko and the new knight, Kiba Yuto, the younger brother of the one in the bed currently, were flanking her. Akino, what's going on? I felt a large amount of angelic in the words died in her mouth as she looked at Naruto. That is not what I was expecting. Nisan? Kiba questioned in hesitation. His voice seemed to draw the older blonde back to reality. His blue eyes had a light glow to them as he turned to face Kiba. Hey there, little bro, just a moment. Naruto extended his hand out as a glowing blue orb formed before becoming ethereal and floated away as it moved to circle around Naruto. Yo, did it work, Alpha? Indeed it did, Naruto. The orb paused and seemed to spin on the spot slowly before stopping again. We are surrounded by weird people, Naruto. It happens a lot, you'll get used to it, Alpha. Oh yeah, Kiba, this is Alpha, my sacred gear. Naruto gave a small wave of his hand at the orb, who shot over to the younger sibling. Don't worry too much about that. In fact, it is better if you just pretend that he isn't floating around you and talk to him like he was standing in front of you, otherwise you'll just give yourself a headache. Nisan, I believe there are some things that we need to explain to you. Kiba gave a slight bow of his head, creasing his brow lightly as Alpha moved with him, like a planet in orbit, and his head was a star. After his bow and light observation, he waved his hand dramatically in the direction of the red-haired girl, who had previously burst into the room to start speaking to someone named Akino. Naruto figured it to be the cute girl from earlier, though he wasn't sure, maybe the girl was. Deciding to call him Akino, that would be pretty weird. This is Rias Gremory, though given where we will be heading it may be best to get used to saying it Gremory Rias. Okay, so you found yourself a girlfriend or something, Kiba? Naruto gave a confused look before Alpha darted back to his head and started his orbit. Quite the opposite, the young lady here is not a lady at all, she is a devil. Naruto quirked a brow slightly. Like horns and fire and stuff, yeah? Yes. Okay, so the devil is a small teenage girl, I guess I can live with that. No, you two are now a devil. It is not singular but rather a race. Naruto nodded his head lightly. I guess that makes sense. I mean, you said that prick back in the church was a fallen angel. That would mean that angels are real, meaning that Lucifer falling from heaven and becoming a devil may not actually be just a fairy tale. He pressed his lips together in thought. But I thought that those that served under Lucifer were demons, not devils? That is another story for another time anyway. The devil there is your new master, so to say. Alpha stopped his orbit and slowly spun to look at Rias while he rested beside Naruto's ear. Everyone in this room is a devil, though there are also 2 children of light here. Akino, at least that is what Naruto was going to call her until told otherwise, tightened her features as she glared at the blonde and his floating orb. What the hell is this child of light stuff you keep talking about, Alpha? The orb paused and bobbed a few times. You're an angel, so is the girl with pink eyes, though she is fallen like the one you killed in the church. Naruto pressed his lips together as he looked at the dubbed Akino. Okay, he gave a small shrug before looking back at Alpha. So anything else I need to know about? We are, and by that I mean you, are now a rook. From the game of chess, you have increased physical and magical defense with a major boost to your physical and spiritual attacks. Magical attacks remain the same, though our endurance has been raised. Alpha bobbed up and down before circling around Naruto's head again. Yay. I think you are taking this pretty well, Alpha, Naruto trailed tiredly. Well, I am more open-minded now that we are together. Well, not together, but together, you know. I do not. Naruto rubbed at his temples again, sparing a glance to Kiba. This is what I went through every day I was in that tube. I am so sorry, Naruto and I. Nah, it's not that bad. You do get used to it after a while, but it can still get a bit irritating from time to time. So we are all devils. That's pretty cool, I guess, though what would Mum say now? No doubt she would blame it on television. Naruto scratched his chin a little before shrugging his shoulders, which caused his wings to flap and knock everyone over. I forgot about them, Alpha. How do I draw them back inside? Just focus on them going back inside. It should work well. There was a small bob, I hope, or we will suddenly burst into flames either way. God damn it, Alpha. The others flinched like they were struck by something, which caused Naruto to give them a ludicrous look. What the hell are you guys doing? Talking about God or anything heaven-related normally ends up in us being struck. Why aren't you? Rias spoke for the first time since she entered the room. Though that was from Naruto's perspective, she may have indeed been talking, but he was more preoccupied with the floating orb and Kiba. That is because Naruto is an angel, Alpha explained of so simply. Not a fallen one, he added after a moment of thought, which caused a small growl from the other side of the room. Rias blinked a few times before looking at the orb. You're a sacred gear, correct? Yes, Alpha replied after a moment of thought. I didn't think that sacred gears outside of the Longinus were sentient? Alpha paused in his movements. We were not made to be god slayers. Sacred gears are to fuel the evolution of the races. Naruto rose a brow at the serious tone that Alpha had taken, while the others in the room gave a confused look. I am Alpha, the first, or the hands of God. Together with God we have created all known sacred gears in rotation. A pin drop could be heard in the room as the devils stared in awe. Naruto scratched at the back of his head before lightly bopping the orb on the head. Despite its somewhat see-through nature, you need to calm down a little there. But it's true, and God chose you to be the next wielder of me long ago. He has plans for us. Naruto craned his eyebrow at that. Whatever they are, I don't care. I want to live my life my way. He shot a glance to Rias. Do you have a problem with that, master? The redhead gave a tired sigh as she rubbed the bridge of her nose. My family doesn't work like that. We treat our servants, and I use that word very lightly, mind you, with respect. I actually consider most of my peerage to be my friends. Inwardly, though, she was jumping up and down at what she had heard. The first sacred gear to get her hands on that, the one responsible for aiding in the creation of all the others, she just may be able to defeat the unbeatable Phoenix. His words, though, were something that rung through her a little. He wanted to be who he wanted, not what others expected him to be. That was something she could respect, feeling that they may be able to use that small shared belief to form a connection. Not to mention he was an angel, or at least partly, one that was able to stay to his routes despite being changed into a devil, at least if his wings were telling the truth. That was unheard of, a major rare piece. Mixing that with the Alpha, as it seemed to be called, she may have hit the jackpot with these brothers. Her lips pressed together slightly, seeing him toss her words around in his head. Would he believe the truth, or would he take it as a convenient lie? She watched him stretch his arms up and reach behind his head, giving a small shrug. Whatever, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You can't be worse than the last people that took us in after all. Rias saw Kiba wince from his words. She had, after all, had a brief, very brief, overview of what the brothers went through before she found them. Along with watching the Elder One tap into light and start using it almost naturally in the same battle against a fallen angel with no doubt much more experience with the magic than him, and coming out on top. So I'm a rook, that's the castle, right? Naruto questioned, causing Rias to blink a handful of times at him before noticing that she was being addressed. Yes. Though you are a mutated rook, meaning that you are worth more than the standing 5 points of a rook, Rias answered, letting a small breath out. She had actually forgotten about that with the amount of things that had been discovered about the blonde. He was a once-in-a-lifetime piece. Naruto rolled his hand around a few times, letting bright lights flicker over it like rolling coins. He noticed that Rias had her gaze trained on the coins. Is there a problem? No, it is just that light energy, which you are currently using, can be quite dangerous to devils, which just so happen to fill this room currently, Rias explained calmly, though she was interested in how he seemed to control it naturally now. If she hadn't seen it herself, she wouldn't have been able to tell that he had only recently awoken his angelic side. He spread his fingers out wide, stretching the coin like a rubber band around his tips before quickly rolling his hand and closing his fingers shut, causing it to vanish like it had never been there. Well, what are we waiting for? No offense really. But I don't like people in the room where I was sleeping. It feels kinda strange. I mean, well, last time I was asleep, well. Rias widened her eyes for a moment before quickly nodding. I didn't think of that. Sorry, Naruto-san. And no big, I guess, Rias-san. So let's get out of here, any? Kiba adjusted the shirt on his shoulders, making sure that the white fabric was properly in place before he smoothed out the slacks he was wearing. It was the clothing he felt the most comfortable inside of. It was simple, yet it had just enough flair to make himself stand out. They were of course provided by the Gremory house. He wasn't quite sure what to make of them yet. They seemed nice enough, though in this world, nice normally was not enough. He spared a glance to Naruto, who was currently playing with the hood on his new jacket. He was in a pair of dark gray jeans, a tight white t-shirt covering his chest barely being exposed to the outside world by his large black jacket with an orange fur-lined hood. It was fake fur, at least Kiba believed so. Naruto pulled his hands away from his hood and ran one through his hair to calm himself, though he wasn't really bothered by anything. It was more over the fact that he had done so much since his test tube broke, and he hadn't really stopped. After his conversation with Rias in that bedroom, they met the people that lived in the mansion, along with Grafia, the head maid of the house. After a small glare war along with Naruto having to explain how he broke a bed by drawing his wings out, which he still wasn't quite sure how that happened, she had given them money to fetch clothes for themselves. This was the outcome. Naruto clapped Kiba on the shoulder and pushed him towards where the girls were no doubt waiting. It turned out that Akino, yes, he made sure that it was actually her name, and Rias were both in their first years of high school in Japan. It would turn out that Rias stumbled by them during her vacation with Akino and Kaneko. Kaneko was a year younger than Kiba. This of course made Akino and Rias a year younger than himself. It would be his second year if he was in high school in Japan. That was if Alpha's information was still good, though the floating orb hadn't steered him wrong before. In saying that though, Naruto was 16, going on 17, while Akino and Rias were either turning 16 or were already such. Stepping out into the main area of the store, he saw the attendant widen her eyes in shock at the two young males before her cheeks gained a light dusting of rose. Rias let a smile creep onto her face while Akino slightly lessened the permanent glare she held on Naruto. After all, he came right out and said that she was a fallen angel. Well, his sacred gear said it, he just didn't seem to care, which wasn't right. How could he not care about something like that? What was he planning to do with that information? Blackmail? She honestly didn't know. Though she could admit that he did look good. Naruto crouched down and looked at little Kaneko, who was giving him a blank look. So Pipsqueak, how do we look? It's Kaneko. She turned her gaze away, looking outside of the store and giving off the impression that she wasn't going to reply. Look cool, she softly stated, causing Naruto to give a smug smile. Well, if Pipsqueak says we looks good, it must be true. Must be because we were gifted with our mother's amazing good looks at Kiba. The younger brother merely gave a nervous chuckle. He couldn't remember their mother all that well. To be honest, it was kind of a blank point in his life. He couldn't remember his father either. To him it was mostly just Naruto that he could remember and all the things that he has done for him. Naruto gave a small shrug of his shoulders. Well, Red, are you going to keep ogling me all day, or can we go get something done? Rias had a small blush form on her cheeks before she cleared her throat. It was indeed true that she had been looking at his well-toned chest that stuck out below his tight t-shirt, though she wouldn't say that aloud. I believe we sh. Though her words were cut off, which actually shocked her greatly considering who did so. Uzumaki-san, can we speak in private? Eyes turned to Akino. After all, she had referred to him, which was strange in itself. Her voice was also slightly gritted, though it was more the fact that she had remembered a line that he had spoken on their way here. Even if it was quiet, she seemed to hear it, and remember clearly. His mother was called Uzumaki Kushina. He seemed to hold a strong connection to his mother, so it would after all make sense for him to prefer to use her name, that along with the fact that apparently he didn't have a father. Naruto placed his hands inside of his pockets and let out a small sigh. Sure, I guess Red and the others will catch up to us. With that, the two angels walked out of the store, leaving Rias to pay for the shopping trip. By that we mean Lord Gremory pay for the trip, because after all, Rias didn't walk away with nothing from all this. She needed to pick up the new season's change of style. She spared a glance to the direction where the two left, her mind wandering on what that conversation could be. Once they were outside, Naruto gave a curious glance to Akino. So what do you want to talk about? He looked down as she grabbed onto his hand and dragged him down a nearby alleyway. I guess I'll just follow you then? He offered, though Akino didn't reply until they came to the back of the store they were inside of, and she put him up against the wall. trying her hardest to look intimidating as she glared at him. "What are you doing?" Akino hissed out. Naruto though rose a brow at her. "I guess I am being held up against a wall by some cute little devil girl." Her eyes narrowed on him dangerously. "Look, I have no idea what you are talking about. It wasn't your secret to tell." "Yep, I am missing something here." "I didn't want anyone other than Rias to know about that side of me," Akino growled out, clutching his shirt tighter, "that I have such dirty blood." She was taken back though when the blonde just laughed at her, intertwining his fingers with her own and breaking them away from his shirt. "Who cares what you have in your body?" She widened her eyes and looked to the blonde. "I mean, I am an angel or something, right?" Akino nodded at his words, slowly, but she nodded nonetheless. "Yet so far I like you devils the most. I mean, yeah, you have the blood of a fallen, and one of you guys tried to kill me and my brother, but he wasn't you, so why should I care if you have fallen blood or not? To me and Kiba, you haven't done anything wrong other than glare at me non-stop since we left the room today." She saw that their hands were still linked together and felt a rush of heat to her cheeks before she took her hand back, placing it behind her, as she tried to fight the blush that was rushing to her cheeks. Then. "Akino, are you done yet?" came a call from the front of the store. Naruto gave a small chuckle. "It would be pretty cool if you could stop making those faces at me. Then again, we don't know each other, as screw it. Red will probs get angry if we leave her alone for too long." He took a few steps back towards the front before looking over his shoulder. "You coming?" "As sure," the young teen stuttered out, still able to feel the touch of his warm hand against her own. His words as well. He was so different to others. His mind seemed to be much more open than she thought it would be, especially considering the fact that he had already been attacked by a fallen. If anything, he seemed to have a decent enough reason to be somewhat hostile towards her, yet he wasn't. Maybe he wouldn't judge her like the others seemed to. Maybe things could be a little different this time? No. Come on. It's not happening. But Naruto, everybody else is doing it. Red, I refuse. Nisan. Not happening, Kiba, just no. Rias and her peerage sat around a room, spread out on lounges in the apartment that Naruto had managed to acquire from Surzex in a game of poker. They didn't want to really pry into how Lucifer lost hundreds of thousands to a newly reborn devil in a game of luck and skill, but they all knew it happened. Rias, Akino, Kiba and Kaneko sat across from Naruto on a long lounge that was a deep ebon in color, while Naruto sat in a resting chair. Between them was an older-style table where their refreshments sat. Red, or Rias Gremory, was currently pouting. Akino was straining to keep a smile on her face while Kiba looked plain exhausted. Kaneko was currently happily nibbling on a stick of Pocky. She rose a brow in Naruto's direction. "Go to school," she stated calmly. Yes, the entire argument that had been going on for nearly half an hour now had to deal with the eldest blonde going to high school. "Not you too, Chibi?" Kaneko gave him a stoic glare for his use of her new nickname. There was a flash of light, and a blue orb appeared next to Naruto, hovering in the air for a moment before starting to orbit Naruto. But don't we need to go to school to accomplish your dream, Naruto?" Alpha's words seemed to gain the interest of everyone else, much to the blonde's displeasure, as he sunk a little in his chair. "Oh, does our angel have a dream he wants to accomplish?" Akino taunted him lightly. She was willing to give him a chance, not much more than that, but he seemed to be good in the sense that he didn't judge right away. "It's silly, I don't want to talk about it." He wants to be a hero." A loud thud rung out through the room as Naruto's head found its way to the table between the two sides. "Really?" Rias questioned, quite surprised. "A hero?" Naruto let out a tired sigh. "There are times when you need to stop talking, Alpha." But you never told me not to say it?" "I never told you to come out, yet you did." Naruto trailed before picking himself up and looking across to Rias. "This world is crap and bleak. In all honesty, it is fucked, and it looks like no one is trying to do anything to fix it. We are all too busy fighting against one another in this world where heroes no longer exist. I want to create new ones that people can hold on to think fondly about when the times get tough, and maybe even give life lessons to those in need for this. I want to be an author, a hero that creates heroes." A pin drop could be heard in the room as people were giving shocked looks to the blonde. He was surprisingly deep, much more than they had thought. Plus, from what they had seen, he was well versed in literature, along with being quite intelligent. It was a possibility for him. Rias slowly let her eyes return to normal as she gave a small smile to the blonde across from her. "Going to school would be helpful for that dream. What don't you like about school that makes you so against the idea?" The rest of his words were mumbled. "Pardon, what was that?" Rias questioned, a little hopeful as the blonde hung his head down. "I've never been to school before." Kiba paused in shock. Thinking back, Naruto was right. He was always working so that Kiba could attend, and then he became sick. Nisan. Something wasn't adding up and Akino was the one that decided to question it. If that is the case, how do you know so much? Naruto jabbed his thumb out in the direction of Alpha, who was now hovering around the table trying to put a straw inside of himself to drink tea. Believe it or not, despite his looks and the stupid things that he often does, Alpha is incredibly smart. He taught me most of what I know regarding my schooling. Easy task. Children of light learn much faster than any other race. Don't you think you're being a little biased, Alpha? Rias questioned. After all, this sentient sacred gear, though they seem to often wish he lost the ability to talk, was created by God, much like the angels, or children of light, were. Probability low, and basing my conclusion on facts. Children of light are able to take in and process information faster than the other races by 30 to 50%. It is one of the many reasons they are so dangerous in combat, while the minimal time that you can all gather your reaction time to is 0.21 seconds, at least currently. A child of light can bring that down to 0.1 when their body reaches its maximum possible power, Alpha responded calmly. The sacred gear did enjoy every chance he got to tell Rias that angels were better than devils, and he took every chance he got to do so. Rias crinkled her brow slightly. That doesn't sound all that impressive, she trailed lightly. Naruto though looked like he was able to answer a question that had long since escaped him. Is that how I was able to match that fallen when I just woke up? Correct. It is nice of you to put that together so quickly. You were simply able to react faster than him as the battle continued. At first you were quite slow in doing so, mostly because you were still in the process of waking up after a long period of rest. But once fully alert, it was quite easy for you to see what he was doing, correct? Yeah, I could see what was happening, but my body was still pretty slow. I guess I need to really increase my speed if I want to be able to fight against people like that. He saw the look that Rias was giving him and chuckled. Do you honestly expect me to believe that I am not going to have to fight people now that I am protecting an heiress to one of the great devil pillars, Red? Rias pressed her lips together and thought, I see you are more aware of your surroundings and the proceedings that happen around you than you let on. Very well, how about we make a compromise, Naruto? I wish for you to attend Ko Academy so that you can be closer to myself and the rest of the peerage. I could speak to my father and see about having you enrolled into a self-study course. You will need to report your progress to the board of directors every now and again, but you will be mostly able to do what you wish. I can accept that, Naruto mused, picking up his cup of coffee and placing the damned straw inside of Alpha to stop the gear from giving him another headache, begrudgingly that is. A smile weaved across Ria's face. This had been an argument she didn't want to have with the blonde, though in the end it had turned out quite well. She learned more about her new rook and managed to convince him to come to the same school. Though he wouldn't be in their classes, though that was to be expected anyway, he was older than them, though it would be nice to have an attractive-looking senior around. She gingerly picked up the teacup that was placed on the table for her and sipped at the contents, her eyes going wide at the taste. Naruto noticed this and gave a light chuckle. I figured you might like that. I ordered that tea in from India as Akino said it was your favorite drink. Naruto waved his hand lightly and spared a glance to Akino, who indeed looked quite surprised. What? Did you honestly think that I just didn't listen to all that nagging you tend to do? Quite honestly, yes, Akino quipped, earning a dry glare from Naruto. A tired sigh rung through the large empty room. In the library of Ko Academy, in between a large pile of book resting either side of him, with another resting on his face, his feet kicked up while he leaned back on the hind legs of the chair. He had spent the better part of a week brushing up all of his literature skills. With the abilities of Alpha, he had found it all too easy to read through the large amounts of information. Now he was bored. He needed a topic. For some reason he thought one would just drop out of the sky and land in his lap. He awoke with a jolt as something struck the table across from him. The only reason he didn't fall from his chair was due to his quick reflexes allowing him to grab the table and pull himself back into place, his other hand grabbing the book from midair and placing it back on the table. Glaring across at the smiling raven-haired woman across from him, you shouldn't mess with your seniors like that, Akino, he trailed out. Oh my, I have no idea what you could possibly be talking about, Naruto-senpai. I was just placing my books down so that I could study more effectively. Her smile didn't falter in the slightest, and that is what irked him the most. Naruto stretched his arms out and gave a tired sigh as he sat properly, stealing a glance at the books she placed down. And you just needed to use the library for this studying of yours? You know, the only one place that I would possibly be during school time? Indeed, this is the only place I can get reliable information on the English language. The fact that you just happen to be here alone is just a coincidence, Akino replied, her smile stretching a few fractions further. The blonde gave a small yawn at which he tapped his mouth a few times before scratching his chin. Well, congrats. Because of language you just had a conversation in English. The fact that you didn't know shows just how scary that ability is, though. Akino rose a brow at him. But that can only happen if someone else is you can speak English? She practically shot out of her seat and stared at the man. Latin, Spanish, French, Romanian, English, Japanese, Chinese, Greek, and Italian. I have spent quite a bit of time with a wealth of information, so I did all I could to learn what might be useful in the future. Kinda seems pointless now that we have this perk of ours. Naruto rolled his hand across the table and let out another sigh. I guess I'm gonna head into town. Maybe pick something up to eat on the way home. He stood up to leave only to hear the chair across from him squeak out in a movement. As well, is there something that you wanted, Akino? See, can I get your help with English? I can speak it fine when it comes into a conversation, but I cannot read or write it. She looked at the blonde only to see him continue to get up. Inwardly she sunk a little. No one had really been able to connect with him. He seemed to shut them out, even Kiba to a degree, but it always would help his little brother without question. Well, are you coming? A voice questioned from the door. Looking up, she saw Naruto standing there with a questioning look. But my boo. Leave them. Naruto waved a light hand at her. You can stare at books all day and try to pound it into you that way, or you can learn it while you are out and about. Do you really think I spent so much time seated in a test tube doing nothing but learning things from Alpha? I mean, he didn't teach me about being a special child, but he taught me how to use his powers. I trained with them every day while he was teaching me about the world. Akino looked to her books for a moment before placing them into her bag and moving to stand next to Naruto. He closed the door behind them and led the way down the halls. This, though, had started people talking. The library used to be full of students, though now no one tried to go there. The girls, while they believed the Kalash student to be incredibly attractive, they also seemed to think of him as something like a sleeping dragon. He was best to be left alone and admired from a distance. So when they saw one of the great One-Isamas walking by his side with her hands tucked behind her back, seemingly in a good mood, they didn't know what to think. There were a handful of boys, mostly from proud families, though they all resided in the first year and were honestly beyond scared of the blonde. Calling someone a Yankee only to have them rip through you in perfect Latin in front of a group of teachers who actually clapped at his performance was enough to leave some marks. Naruto let out a small sigh as he ran a hand through his hair. This is ruining my image. Akino let a smile spread across her lips. Being seen with a beautiful girl is going to ruin your image? I would hate to know what you think your image is, senpai. Her words earned her a small glare, which she shrugged off. This kind of back and forth continued as they passed through the shopping district. Apparently Surzex had lost much more money to Naruto than they had thought. That was if the amounts he was spending was anything to go by. It didn't really seem like Naruto was doing much to teach her. She hadn't even noticed he was doing it, though at the end of the day he gave her a piece of paper written in English and got her to read it without her even struggling once. She gave him a confused look, which he shrugged off. When she went back to her books later that night, she found it made so much more sense. Sitting on her bed, she twirled the pen around in her fingers, musing over the book in her hands, only to be disturbed by a knock at her door. Now, living all alone in an old run-down shrine had very few benefits. One of those, though, was that she was mostly left alone. Meaning it was one of the devils that she attended school with. Jumping off her bed, she walked through the old shrine and came to the large door, creaking it open just enough to see a distraught Rias standing in front of her. Butcho, what brings you all the way out here? Her response was for Rias to lift up her workbook. Sticking out of the side was the assignment sheet that Akino herself had just completed earlier. Have you finished already? Please tell me you have. Rias asked almost desperately. Akino, though, gave a light giggle. Era. Did Butcho lose track of time watching and reading her collection again? Rias gave her a small glare at the way she said collection, making it sound like her large collection of anime and manga were dirty. It wasn't her fault that she found them so entertaining and addictive. Possibly she trailed, already knowing that Akino had convinced herself that this is what happened, so lying about it wouldn't help her out in any way. I have finished, yes. Akino trailed carefully, wondering where Rias was trying to go here. Then could I possibly look over your work and make sure that I haven't done anything wrong? You mean you want to copy my assignment? The one that asks us to individually work on translating a menu and giving an accurate description of a Japanese-themed restaurant in English? Akino tapped her bottom lip a few times. The assignment was due tomorrow. No, you can't copy mine. She saw Rias give her a look of pure shock. Though I can help you if that isn't enough, I suppose you could always call Naruto. He was the one that helped me, though I still don't know how, but after spending the afternoon with him, this subject is much easier now. Rias gave Akino a confused look. Naruto knows English? He knows quite a lot, plus he has spent the majority of the week in the library just reading, as much as he could. Akino watched as Rias went to grab her phone before sighing. I don't have his number, and I kind of don't want to show up unannounced. Last time was strange. Last time? Oh my, what happened? Rias fumbled the pages in front of her lightly as they walked down the lonely halls of the abandoned shrine. She didn't know why Akino decided to live here, though she appeared to be happy with it. Maybe it was because it reminded her of home somewhat. Either way, she thought back to her longtime friend's question and blushed deeply. I may have made a mistake and teleported into his bathroom while he was on the toilet. A small blush formed on Akino's cheeks as she let out another giggle. Era. Naruto rubbed at the back of his head as a yawn passed by his lips. So Red, does everyone have to do this kind of thing? The reason for his question was somewhat simple. Rias had asked him to take care of a stray devil, by himself. That was the oddity, at least for the rest of the peerage, though they had been told to just go along with her words for the time. It was the reason why Kiba was not present. He had protested against having to lie to his brother, so Rias told him to wait in the club room. Indeed. It shouldn't be much of a stretch for you though, should it? There was a loud pop as Naruto put his back into place and stretched out his arms. I am still majorly out of shape, but it is only a stray devil, not even a high-ranking one. I can do this easily. Rias gained a small smile at that. Though she did not like playing her peerage like this, she needed to know how strong Naruto was so she could put him to better use in her strategies. This stray devil was once a mid-class devil that rebelled against her master and managed to escape to the human world. Her power now was quite strong, more than Akino or herself would be able to handle in a straight fight. If they got the drop, then it would more than likely be no issue, as they could cause a large amount of damage, leaning the battle into their favor. In saying that though, Rias had contacted her older brother in regards to her new rook. Turning an angel into a devil had never happened before with allowing them to keep their wings. Normally they would either revert to a human if the cause was just, or become a fallen if they did so out of a sinful reason. Her rook was one of a kind, and that was not wasted on her. No one could tell what his potential was. That was without the added fact that he held the first sacred gear, a sentient machine, or energy, they weren't sure on the matter yet, which held the ability to at the very least aid in the construction of sacred gears alongside the biblical god, was nothing short of amazing. Not to mention there seemed to be some investment in her rook from the Heaven faction, at least if the words of Alpha rung true. God chose you to be the next wielder of me long ago. He has plans for us. God had an interest in her rook. The man that created everything and could quite easily take everything wanted her rook for something. It must be important. That also had to mean that he was different from any other human. Well, that much was clear to her already. He was part angel, a strong one at that, from the light that poured off of him when he released his wings. It had sent shivers right down her spine. This was the reason why her getting him to do this task was so important. She needed to know if she could deal with Naruto if he became a problem for her in the future. Holding out her hand, a small anime-style bat came into play. Its body was much too big for its wings, yet that didn't seem to be an issue for the small creature. I hope you do not mind letting my familiar watch over you. Don't have much of a choice, but whatever. Naruto gave a small shrug before turning on his feet. The bat familiar following closely behind him as he entered the large concrete tunnel and vanished into the darkness. His target was further inside, using this old maintenance system as a hideout for the time being. Once he was out of earshot, Akino turned to Rias, the smile that was on her face dropping. This is much more than you should be giving someone to do alone. No, you wouldn't have even taken this request when it was just myself, you, and Kaneko. Are you worried about him, Akino? Rias mused. It was actually strange to see her queen show an interest in anything really. Normally she was detached from her surroundings, there, but not really there. I am worried about you, Rias. You're changing. It hasn't been all that long since Kiba and Naruto joined us. Kiba has accepted us and acts as somewhat of a medium between us all. I just fear that you may be putting a wedge between yourself and your rook, Akino answered, though that wasn't the real reason. She would miss the playful banter between Naruto and herself if something were to happen to him. He didn't treat her like she was different. Some avoided her because of her fallen statues, or even because of her title as Great One-sama. Others tried to wrap her up in bubble wrap to protect her. Naruto, well, he was blunt, straight to the point. If you irritated him, he would say it. He talked to her normally. Sure, he omitted the fact that she was a fallen angel from their conversations, though they didn't talk all that much about the supernatural. It was more just about how school was, how his book was going, and small things like that. If anything, she would have to admit she had taken a liking to their interactions. Passing him in the hall and seeing him flash that small grin of his made her day seem a little brighter, or even receiving his deadpan glares when she teased him warmed her normally cold chest. So no, the reason was not for Rias, not fully at least, but it was okay for her to be selfish, wasn't it? Weren't devils meant to be greedy? To act on their desires? If so, wasn't she only doing what was natural? Thank you for worrying, but I am fine, Akino. I just need to see where he is at. I do not believe him capable of losing to a creature like this, Rias spoke with a small smile. That irritated Akino to no end, though she let a smile slowly stretch across her face. How could Rias possibly know what Naruto's level was like? She had openly admitted that she didn't even know that Naruto had fought against a fallen until he had mentioned it. All she had really seen was Naruto seemingly raise himself from the dead to protect his younger brother, which in turn caused her to bring them both back after finding that Kiba held a sacred gear, as did his older brother. All of Rias' information came from Kiba, and Akino could not picture the smiling young blonde actually giving her anything really worthwhile. No, she figured that Naruto didn't even let Kiba know how strong he was so that the boy wouldn't feel conflicted. She pressed her lips together and tried her best to hold her smile firm. Though something would need to be done, there was a rift forming in the peerage, and as its queen it was her job to fix it. You know she is lying to us, right? Naruto pressed his lips together in thought, checking behind him on the familiar, making sure that it was still there just in case. I know. Kiba would have been jumping up and down on the couch trying to tell me about something like this. That boy really just wants to prove himself. When you look at how you were both raised, well, that isn't really the right word now, is it? A frown crossed Naruto's face. Alpha wasn't wrong, yet he wasn't right at the same time. Kiba and himself had been alone for nearly longer than they had anyone but each other. That's wrong, we raised ourselves. The path opened up into a wide room. Using the corners of his eyes, Naruto scouted it fully, taking in everything he could, watching as a black-robed figure slowly rose to its feet. It was only a matter of time, I guess. Slowly the figure turned to face Naruto. It was a girl, young-looking in appearance with faded red markings on her face, her eyes a deep blood red. Stray devil Akame. A borderline S-class criminal. Your piece was denied, giving you increased speed. This matched with your sacred gear wounding edge, which causes your attacks to leave wounds until you either release your sacred gear or you die. The young-looking girl widened her eyes a little at him. You looked into me? My master, I guess she is using this as a test of my strength. The familiar of hers behind me watching over and possibly recording this situation for her is more than enough to tell me that I am right. That, along with the fact that the only reason I know who you are is because of the markings on your face and your deep eyes, well, you could say that I was expected to walk into this situation blind. Naruto gave a small shrug of his shoulders. Akane gave a sad smile and looked at Naruto. There is no chance I can ask you to just walk away, is there? Naruto thumbed at the familiar next to his shoulder. Not a chance, sorry. Though you do seem too sweet to have killed your master out of a shallow reason, I would ask, but this already has a sour taste in my mouth. Forgive me then, Akame said as the ground exploded out around her, and she appeared in front of Naruto, her sword already raised to strike. She watched with slight awe as he dodged the strike. It should have been impossible for him to respond so well from the position he was in unless he started to move as soon as she did. It was only just able to class as a dodge as she watched the blade pass so close to his skin that she would have been able to claim giving him a light shave. She went to change her direction only for her blade by strike against metal before being thrown off to the side. She took a split second to get her bearings and stance back, standing across from the blonde and seeing the metal gauntlet on his left hand. I was going to say the same thing. Sorry to ask this, but do you think I can take my jacket off first? I really like it so I don't want it to get damaged. Hell, if you beat me you should take it. I reckon it would look pretty good on a cutie like you. Naruto saw the faint tint come to her cheeks as she gave him a forced stoic nod. Once the jacket left his body and was placed inside of a metal ball that appeared from the blonde's hand, Akame took in the state of the blonde's body. He was a fighter, the muscles were there, slim yet strong, not overly bulky, meaning that they didn't get in the way of his attacks. You're not like the others. Apparently I am one of a kind, though that isn't important. Naruto flickered from her view for a moment, appearing again not far from his position, lightly bouncing on the balls of his feet. Another gauntlet now present along with a pair of boots that looked to be made of a sturdy and hardened material, meaning it would be difficult to cut unless she hit his shins directly. Giving the normal movements of the legs though, that was awkward. A glancing hit was much more normal, though those boots would more than likely protect him from one. The arms were another thing entirely though. They were much more likely to take a direct hit, meaning that it made more sense for them to be heavily armored like they were. Akane drew her blade up to her eyes and took a strong and low stance. Her skin started to darken as the light markings gray much brighter and more definite against her skin. I am sorry, but I won't hold back any longer. Akane dashed forward and thrust her sword out, watching as the blonde curled around it, and landed a fist into her stomach. She could feel the strong force behind it, though no pain came from the impact. She was forced to lean over and cough, spittle flying out of her mouth, though it didn't hurt at all. Her eyes widened as she felt a sudden impact to her ribs, sending her flying across the room. She managed to flip herself over in the air and see one of his legs still extended from where he had kicked her. It felt like a strong push, though with the force she was sent it had to have been an incredible kick. Akame stabbed her blade into the ground, halting her movement right away as she looked down at where had been struck. The clothing had been completely destroyed. Feeling a creeping embarrassment surge inside of her, she looked to the blonde with a blush adorning her cheeks. Sorry about that, but I don't want to hurt you. Because of this I am using weapons that numb the areas that they hit, though it also destroys any barrier between them and the skin underneath. Naruto opened and closed one of his armored fists. an awkward expression on his face as he did. Akame nodded. You really are different, she stated that so clearly that Naruto widened his eyes at her before letting a smile cross his face. Yeah, I guess I am. He drew his power into his shoulders and let it burst out behind him, the ground around him exploding under the newfound pressure. Akame took a small step back at the sight of his wings, the devil ones she had expected. It was the ones of pure white that caught her off guard. Then again, he had been nothing but nice to her. Even as they were fighting to the death, he was trying to make it as painless as possible for her. Slowly she formed a smile and showed it to him. Maybe if we had met earlier in life we could have been friends. May I have your name? It's Naruto. Fish cake or maelstrom? She questioned further, showing that she had some knowledge of Japanese names. Naruto let his own smile roll across his face. I sometimes wonder that myself. He gave a small flap of his wings and craned his head to the side. If you are giving it your all, I should do the same. Akame widened her eyes as he vanished in a burst of speed, her body only just able to turn to her left in time and bring up her blade to defend against the metal fist that appeared on the edge of her vision. The force behind his fist was incredible, though she knew that if it hit her, she wouldn't hurt anymore. It would take away her pain, this pain that made her who she was, that reminded her of why she ended up living this way. She was torn, feeling the crushing weight before she was lifted off the ground and by his other arm. She tried to turn, to see from which direction he was coming, but he was too fast, his punches spinning her and lifting her higher and higher with each strike. It was a brutal onslaught, though at the moment they felt like nothing but friendly taps. How much damage had he done to her body now? Could she even stand? Her back hit something hard and solid. Looking over her shoulder she saw the ceiling and felt a small pit rise in her stomach. It was well off the ground, so much so that from ground level it was blacked out by the lack of light in the area. Akame felt her body start to fall down to the ground only for it to stop as a warmth surrounded her, stopping her fall before she could strike the solid ground below her. Naruto had caught her and was lowering her to the ground. She looked at the blonde in light confusion, feeling herself get laid out on the ground. She attempted to swing her sword, only for nothing to happen. Turning her head ever so lightly she could see that her arms were beyond destroyed, yet she couldn't feel a thing. It didn't hurt anymore, nothing did. Tears slowly started to spill from her eyes as she gave a wide smile to the blonde standing over her. Thank you, Naruto, for making it go away. Naruto dispelled his gauntlets and twirled his fingers around, drawing a pristine-looking silver dagger from the air. I hope you can meet with your sister again, Akame. Her eyes widened at his words. You knew? I have a little brother myself, and between you and me I would have done the same thing. I couldn't hate you for the actions you took. No, in fact I think I admire you a little, something akin to a hero. Do you think that it might be okay if I share your tale with humans in the form of a book? He questioned. He had in fact been researching her before this all happened. To him she was a hero, and he hated himself and Rias for what they were doing to her. Akame gave him a smile. Of course, I don't think it would sell very well though. Naruto returned her smile and rested his dagger against her chest, watching as it slowly rose and fell. You should rest now, Akame. You've already done more than enough. His response was a small nod, to which he plunged the dagger inside, watching as she gave a confused look to him before she fell still. Her body slowly vanishing up into the air, leaving behind Naruto, who twirled the dagger around in his hand before it broke apart completely, sending itself into the air much like Akame's body had, the small particles of energy swirling and intertwining as they faded away into the darkness above him. Spinning on his feet he locked eyes with the small bat, who quickly stiffened under his gaze. You're recording this, aren't you? The tone from Naruto was icy. The familiar quickly nodded with its strange body/head in response, not wanting to end up like the girl had just moments before. Tell read. Rias was watching the recording with wide eyes. Naruto had far exceeded what she had expected him to do. That was even before he brought his wings out. After that the borderline S rank didn't stand a chance. It was completely one-sided. If she were less composed she may be drooling at the prospect of having such a strong piece under her command. That was until he turned his gaze onto her familiar. Tell Red, I want everything available on the Akame case. Also, I don't want to see her for a while. This has left a foul taste in my mouth, and I don't think I would be able to hold back how I feel. Her high had dropped in an instant, now serving as a reminder of how cold the ground could really be. She had not believed herself to be making a mistake, thus she called for the information on Akame and looked through the first couple of pages, her hands stiffening on the paper as her skin turned pale. Because of how close Naruto had been to her, Rias' familiar hadn't been able to pick up their conversation, but it appeared that Akame had become a stray after failing to protect her sister. She was driven to the point of insanity, and murdered her king and peerage in cold blood. She wondered if it was pure chance that this had come her way, or if it was just a warning for Rias' future. She had taken the brothers in to use them for her own gain, much like Akame's king had. If something happened to Kiba, Would she face a situation where she would be on the receiving end of Naruto's fury? Rias let out a sigh. If she could hit the blonde with her power of destruction, then the fight would be over. But he was fast, much faster than her power of destruction could move, not to mention he could create shields to block her power for a few moments to buy himself more time. This situation was not looking good for her. I don't think I would be able to hold back how I feel. Rias looked up at the recording being played again, seeing Akino looking at the screen through eyes of uncertainty. Akino went to speak, only for Rias to cut her off. I don't need to hear that. I can see when I have made a mistake, Akino. Rias pressed her fingers to her temples and gave them a light massage. I was offering to attempt to smooth things over, Akino sighed out, letting go of the familiar in her hands and letting to fly back to Rias. The redhead looked to her queen in confusion. He said he doesn't want to see us for a while. No, just you, Rias. Akino let out a small sigh. You're the only one that he has an issue with. It may be because you haven't tried to actually talk to him. You just expect him to follow your orders. I think that you forget that you never asked him if he wanted to come back. Kiba is the one that asked you to bring him back. Naruto had no say in becoming a devil, yet he doesn't ever say that aloud because it might hurt Kiba. I believe that Naruto cares more about Kiba than his own life. Rias slumped down and rested her head against the clubroom desk. I didn't want for this to happen. I just wanted to see how strong he was. I couldn't think of another way to actually see him in action. He trains Kiba often in swordplay. Recently it would seem that he has started doing some hand-to-hand sparring with Kaneko as well. Akino crossed her arms under her bust. Either way, I do plan on seeing Naruto at some point over the next few days. Would you like me to give him the files on Akame? Her response was for Rias to nod her head against the desk. Could you ask him to see me when he thinks he is ready? Akino rose a brow at her king. I will see. But first it would be best to ask if I could come over. She pulled out her phone and quickly found his number. It was saved under Doveboy. Then again it was done out of spite for the fact that she was Raven in his phone. She brought it up to her ear and heard the tone dial before it was picked up instantly. Hello? She questioned. Ah. Oh great, why did it have to be Alpha that answered? Hello, Fallen One. Really? He is still calling me that? Hello, Alpha, though I would prefer if you called me Akino. She forced a smile onto her face. She had heard once that people can hear if you are smiling or not over the phone. Ah, understood. Error, Fallen One. What can I help you with? Akino blinked, wondering if she had just heard correctly before shaking her head. I was wondering if Naruto was accepting company tonight. Naruto is accepting those that are not called Red. Are you called Red, Fallen One? Out of the corner of her eye, Akino saw and heard Rias groan as she sunk further into her desk. Much more and she might fuse with it completely. Was that possible? If so, it would make for an interesting study. Maybe she could do that as part of her science course to earn extra marks? I am not. Red refers to Rias. At least I am quite sure that is the case. That would make sense. Thank you for clearing that up, Fallen One. Have you eaten yet, or would you like for us to prepare something for you? If it is not an intrusion, I would not be opposed to having dinner with you and Naruto. Akino gave a slight nod as she picked up the files from Rias' desk and started to walk towards the door, flashing a smile to her king, who gave either a wave or a half-hearted flip of the finger. To be honest, she wasn't sure at the moment. I should be around in half an hour or so. I would like to change first. Understood. I shall inform Naruto so that he can prepare. Kiba should also be home around that time. Akino nodded. Thank you. I will see you soon then, Alpha. Yes, you too, Fallen One. Akino smoothed her top down. She had decided to wear something much less formal, a simple long-sleeved sweater and a pair of jeans. It would keep the slight chill in the air away from her, while also helping to hide her rather generous chest. She was well aware that it drew more than normal amounts of attention towards her. Reaching up, she knocked at the door, waiting as she heard footsteps on the other side. It didn't take long for it to open, leaving Kiba standing there with a confused look on his face. Akino-senpai? Is there anything I can do for you? Akino blinked a few times, taking in the much more casual look of Kiba. He was in a pair of tracksuit pants and a long-sleeved sweater-like shirt. It was incredibly strange to see the normal formal-looking boy so not normal. Seeing you like this, Kiba-san, what would the others think of you? The younger blonde narrowed his eyes a little. No offense, Akino-senpai, but I am not really in the mood to trade barbs with you today. Seeing the direction this was heading, Akino rose her hands in a placating manner. Naruto, or rather Alpha, said that it was okay if I came over, plus I brought something that Naruto asked for. Kiba watched as she pulled out a folder that seemed like it was ready to burst open of its covers. On the front had the name Akame. Seeing Kiba's eyes widen slightly, she figured it wasn't the first time he had heard the name. The younger blonde opened the door a little more. Come in then. Nisan is in his study. I'll let him know you are here. Alpha already told me, came a voice from behind Kiba. Both him and Akino turned around to see the older blonde standing further in. Akino had to stop the blush that rose to her face. It would seem that the older blonde had gone with jeans and a tight t-shirt, showing off the work he put into his body, though she wondered when he did, because mostly she either found him sleeping in the library or out shopping. Dinner's nearly done. No doubt you've already checked, but it's that slow roast that Mum taught me. Kiba gave a small blush and rubbed the back of his head, having been read so easily by his brother. Well, I may have had a peek. Anyway, get inside and close the door, you're letting the warm air out. Naruto waved them both inside and entered the living room himself, where tea and coffee had already been prepared with Alpha hovering back to the kitchen. Naruto picked up his cup of coffee and walked into the kitchen, pulling the roast out and quickly carving it up. Akino found herself lost in the smell. It was warm and inviting. Nothing like how the shrine she lived at felt. She fumbled her fingers as she sat down on the lounge next to Kiba. There was no sound coming from the kitchen, though she could see Naruto working with a strange level of intensity. Kiba seemed to pick up on her confusion. Nissan likes to keep things rather quiet around here. It allows us to focus on our studies better. To be honest, when the club was over was the loudest it has ever been apart from family movie night, of course. Family movie night? Akino questioned. She hadn't heard of something like that before. Kiba scratched at the side of his face. Nissan goes out and buys some rather terrible movies and we sit down with desserts and watch and talk. It is pretty silly, but it is nice. Akino tried to picture something like that but couldn't find the idea of Naruto sitting down and just watching a movie with Kiba within her mind. Then again, it seemed like it was special to Kiba, possibly because he was the only one that saw that side of his brother, their own special kind of bond. She sipped lightly at the tea and was surprised by the taste it left in her mouth. It seemed that Naruto had once again spared no expense with the tea. Potatoes? Came a question from the kitchen. Hi Nissan, Kiba replied without a second thought. Akino paused on the question a little. How long had it been since she last had a potato? If it is no trouble? She offered. Was it just her or was the house getting warmer? The sound of plates sliding across the counter snapped her out of her inner thoughts, and she looked up to see Naruto putting stuff in the sink and leaving them to soak while they would be eating. Dinner's up, Naruto called and Alpha came zooming through the apartment. He was more than likely in Naruto's study prior to the call. Akino and Kiba moved up to the bench and found what looked like a feast waiting for them on their plates. Large amounts of meat, cheese, gravy, potatoes, a small side of rice along with what seemed to be some loose salad that would complement it. Akino found it strange. She looked up to Naruto and saw an even stranger sight. He had a goofy smile on his face. I may not be the best cook, but I like to think I can do a pretty good job when it counts. Kiba nodded as he took up a stool. Eating out the counter was something that was done in this apartment. It made Naruto's job easier, plus they didn't really have room for a table. While Naruto had spent the money from Surzex to get a nice place, it was not over the top. It was a place where 2 to 3 people could live easily. Having bought it outright, he didn't have to worry about rent, mainly just the bills, but they didn't use too much, leaving a lot left over for Naruto to spend on food and materials for the brothers. Nissan's cooking is amazing, Akino-senpai. He is just trying to be modest. Incredible. That was the only word Akino had to describe the meal she had just eaten. The conversation was light throughout the meal, mostly just Naruto teasing Kiba about the following of girls he had at school, and Kiba of course retorting, saying if he didn't seem so standoffish he would have the same. Akino had mostly stayed out of it, though she did bring up that Naruto apparently had an image he wanted to maintain, which earned her a small glare. Now she remained seated at the counter as Kiba went to his room to finish his homework. Being a Friday night, he had decided to get it all out of the way before the weekend truly set in. He was a good kid like that. This left Akino and Naruto alone in the kitchen. She watched as he quickly scrubbed the dishes before placing them on a rack to drip dry. He turned around, wiping his hands with a washcloth as he did. Alpha had floated off to go do whatever it was that he did when he wasn't with Naruto. So what brings you here? Akino quirked a brow at him. I have the files of the Akame case that you wanted? Naruto pursed his lips together in thought and gave a slow nod. To be honest, Akino, I am quite tired of playing these games with Red and her group. Just be honest. Red could have sent a familiar over with those. There was no reason for you to come personally. The raven-haired woman hung her head a little. I chose to do this. I just want to say that firstly. Rias is important to me, and while I may disagree with the course of action she has tried to take with you, I can see her reasoning behind such actions. We cannot ask you to trust us if we do not trust you first. I cannot tell you her reasoning, but she is in a tight spot at the moment, and we need people like yourself and Kiba. She wanted to test your strength. While she went about it in a roundabout way, she got the result she wanted. Just the final outcome was not something she had planned. Akino was about to place her head against the counter only for a cup of tea to be placed in front of her. It isn't poisoned if that's what you're thinking. Naruto offered her a small smile. Besides, Red would know right away. Her familiars are not doubt watching this place again. Does this happen often? Akino questioned. The look she got from Naruto was the only answer she needed. Sighing, she sipped lightly at the tea. Well, it seems like she has decided to stay away for now, though she has asked to speak to you when you think you're ready. Naruto gave a small scoff. When I think I'm ready? Akino, let me be frank with you. I didn't ask for this shit. Alpha says he could have healed me even if Red didn't come along. Myself and Kiba would have been fine without her intervention. To be honest, the only one that seems to have gained anything out of this is Red. I am more than ready to talk to her, when she starts to see me as a person and not some tool to meet her goal. Because right now, it feels like that is all I am to her. She says that she treats her peerage members as family? I don't see that. Akino didn't even try to hide the frown on her face. Is that how you really feel? You don't want to know how I really feel, let's just leave it at that, shall we? He lifted up a cup of coffee and sipped at it lightly before peering over to the cloak on the wall. It is getting late. Your parents must be away. He stopped himself when he saw the sad look cross her face. Sorry, do you want me to walk you home? And no, it's fine, I will show myself out. I left the case file on your coffee table. With that, she gave a light bow and walked out the door, pausing as she stepped outside to see one of Rias' familiars sitting on a nearby rooftop watching the house. Shaking her head from side to side, she nearly ran down the steps. Rias was playing a very dangerous game. Akino could see that already. Naruto was on the edge at the moment. He could go either way, and she felt that Kiba would be dragged along with him. They were closer than she had thought, much closer. They acted like siblings. They were an actual family, not some pretend one. Brushing a few strands of hair behind her ears, she reached the bottom of the stairs before starting the long walk home. She wanted to be able to blame his toxic words on Alpha. Though she knew that it wasn't the truth, Naruto had every right to be as angry as he was, if not more so. She knew all too well that Rias could not defeat Naruto. He was simply too fast for her. Not to mention Rias had never actually been struck before. The first time would more than likely break her focus completely, allowing him to completely destroy any defense she had put in place. Currently, the best way to describe the situation was a kitten poking a sleeping tiger. It was only a matter of time before the kitten poked a little too hard and the tiger woke up, and she knew very well who the kitten was in this case. Her lips were pursed in the dimly lit room of the old school building. Her fingers intertwined in front of her mouth. Her eyes were cast down to the book in front of her, having just finished watching a show that had her Rook presenting his kind smile to the people asking him questions. A portion of her wondered how they were able to get him up at this time, though she figured that Kiba more than likely helped. Another part, though, was depressed. It had only been 3 months since the happening with Akame, yet the blonde's book was already in circulation. It was selling incredibly well, so much so that Naruto had paid back most of the money he had won off of Surzex. The act thoroughly confusing Surzex, who never expected to see any of the large amount of money again. Rias Gremory let out a tired sigh as she continued to look at the book. She had not seen Naruto, at least not in person, since she asked him to go after Akame. Her fingers lightly trailed the cover of the book before she opened it up, seeing a small inscription on the inside from who she assumed to be Naruto. Read, "Yes, it was definitely Naruto. You've been a bitch, and I sure as hell haven't been perfect either anyway. My number is at the bottom. Call me and we can meet up or something. Red, maybe we can start over and give this an actual try." She frowned in thought. Had she really not had Naruto's number before now? Pulling out her phone, she quickly went through her contacts only to find out she had never bothered to form a way of contacting him. She just relayed her messages through Akino or Kiba when they had been on more speaking terms. The book in front of her had actually been sitting on her desk for a couple of days now, her sense of procrastination stopping her from opening it, mainly due to the fact that she believed it would be such a hassle to deal with. Nor did she believe that a message would be there for her to reply to. Biting her lower lip, she hastily entered the number. Akino was out, as was Kaneko, and Kiba was more than likely training. She had seen that the boy was down lately, and after asking, it turned out that Naruto had refused to spar against him until he became stronger, not wanting to injure his little brother too much, so they should be completely alone. With his number now entered, she took a breath in, steadying herself before calling him. It rung, and rung and rung. She figured he must not be near his phone and was about to give up until he answered. He didn't speak for a moment, and Rias could hear the sound of loud music. "I was wondering when you would call, Red." Rias felt her body relax slightly when she heard his voice. For some reason she had panicked slightly when he didn't answer her right away, though her mind drifted to the loud music. "Is now a bad time, Naruto?" "Not really, I mean I am out, but I can talk if you want, Red." There was a small pause. "Also, Akino says hello." "Akino is with you?" "Yeah, didn't she tell you that she was going to a party tonight?" Naruto replied as if it was common knowledge. Rias frowned as she twirled a few strands of hair around her finger, thinking back on her best friend's words. "I was invited out tonight, I don't want to let them down, so is it okay if I go, Rias?" She hadn't thought much of it then, though it was a little strange for Akino to ask something of her, though to find it was Naruto that invited her out was news to her. Perhaps they got along much better than she thought she did, though she never told me where it was is all. Makes sense, I guess. The list was pretty tight, though the inside is lame as, hey, what are you up to, Red? His words sounded strange to Rias, though it seemed something else came up. Sorry, someone is calling me. Here, talk to Akino. The sound of the phone being passed around was heard for a few seconds before a soft giggle sounded out. Hello, Rias. Akino, are you okay? Something didn't sound right with her best friend, causing a bit of worry to seep into Rias' voice. Fine, I'm fine, Rias. I don't know how Naruto thinks this is lame. I'm having so much fun. Akino, where are you? A bit of desperation ended up in her voice this time as Rias held the phone a little tighter. Rias, I'm fine. I am out with Naruto at a party and everyone is so friendly. No, Naruto said I shouldn't drink anymore. Akino groggily spoke to someone that was near her. Rias clenched her phone a little tighter, hearing it crack lightly under the strain, and then remembering that she needed to keep it in one piece to keep talking to Akino. Are you drunk? She roared at her friend. I have been drinking, yes. Akino paused slightly. I wasn't meant to tell you that. This was Naruto's idea, wasn't it? Rias questioned through clenched teeth. How dare he get her friend drunk? She was underage. Wait, wasn't he underage as well? Nope. Well, I mean, he was planning on having a couple of drinks with his friends tonight. But then they all saw him on TV today and wanted to have a party. It got pretty big really quickly. Akino seemed to be thinking something over. Oh, look, Naruto's back. The sound of a phone being fumbled around filled her ears again and caused Rias' brow to twitch. You there still, Red? Uzumaki, Naruto, what made you think that giving Akino something to drink was the right thing to do? She kept her temper level-headed. At least she believed that she did. She wanted to try it out. I gave her a couple and have been watching her since she started to get a little tipsy. Nothing to worry about, Red. I won't let her get hurt. She is a pretty nice chick once you get to know her after all, Naruto reasoned, and Rias was sure she could hear him shrug in his voice. Tempering her emotions down, Rias let out a small breath. Trust is a two-way street. Trust is a two-way street. She repeated that over and over again in her head. Can we meet up tomorrow then? Sure, I guess. You want to do breakfast? The others say I cook a pretty mean breakfast. Very well, I shall be over at around 10 a.m. then. I would ask that you look after Akino for me tonight. You don't need to ask that, Red. I look out for my friends. The line went dead and Rias looked at her phone. It was getting close to midnight. Well, that was a lie. It was still a little over an hour away, though it would not do her well to be waking up late. This may be her chance to try to mend her quite broken relationship with her rook. That was exactly what she asked for. Looking over at the small stack of paperwork she had finished earlier, Rias gave a warm smile. She definitely deserved to watch some anime before bed. From memory, she had set Bleach up to record earlier. That would do nicely. With good thoughts in mind, Rias nearly skipped out of the old school building, her destination home. Naruto snapped his phone shut with a flick of his wrist. Akino was not too far from him, dancing with a group of girls on the floor that was quickly changing color to the rapid beat of the music. She seemed to be really enjoying herself. A bunch of guys from the university portion of Ko were clapping him on the shoulder. They had somehow gotten the idea that the two of them were dating. Though that may have to do with the amount of time Akino had spent holding onto his arm to try and steady herself tonight. He stuffed his phone back into his jacket and took the cigarette from his mouth, placing it into a nearby ashtray. He found it relaxing when the stress built up a little too high, or people wanted just a little too much. Though he found that when he was drinking. Akino was in a short black dress with thin straps over her shoulders. It had a deep cut in the back that showed off quite a bit of her perfect and taunting skin. She had a pair of small heels on that matched her dress with little sparkly studs in them. Naruto had taken her shopping earlier, and apparently that was what she wanted to wear tonight. Naruto was clad in his jacket and jeans combo that had almost become what people expected to see him in. He walked forward and the girls around Akino quickly parted with knowing smirks on their faces, as if they were giving him permission to lay his moves on the girl. Akino noticed that her friends had moved away and gave a confused glance, only to notice the white jacket in front of her face. She gave a wide smile and looked up at the owner, Naruto-kun. She cheered lightly and wrapped her arms around his neck. Akino was a very happy drunk. We have to look at going home soon, Akino. Confusion quickly filled her young face. Huh? Why? I am going to speaking to Red in the morning, plus I'm not leaving you alone in a place like this, he added. I'll buy you a drink for the walk home, but after that you're done for the night, okay? Akino pouted at him but let out a small sigh. So bossy, she thought about protesting when he grabbed her hand, for the briefest of possible moments. That was the protesting, of course. though he stayed true to his word and lead her to the bar where he picked her up what he called lolly water and some furry fire flask or triple F for short. He had explained it to her earlier, and from what she could remember, it had something to do with being a yokai drink that was incredibly potent, something that was served in only a handful of clubs and was quite expensive. The bartender, seeing the state Akino was in, decided to put her drink into a water bottle for the girl, one with those pop-tops. Naruto just gave a light chuckle as Akino thought the bartender was calling her a baby, though she did take the bottle and start playing with it as soon as it entered her hands. With that, the duo left, stepping out onto the cold street, which caused Akino to shiver. Of course the girl hadn't brought a jacket with her. Inwardly sighing, Naruto undid his and draped it over her shoulders, earning a small look of confusion. "I don't want you to catch a cold." She wanted to retort that she was fine, but seeing that look of care in his eyes stopped her. He was genuinely worried for her health, thus she nodded and leaned into the blonde as he walked her down the street, taking in the smell of smoke, alcohol, and his cologne that had latched onto the jacket. It was a strange scent, but it filled her with a large amount of warmth. Her head looked up as she heard the click of a metal lighter locking into place, watching as his cracked lips curled ever so slightly around the butt of the cigarette, his eyes seemingly scanning everything around them, like he was looking out for anything that could be trouble. He breathed out a thick cloud of smoke and Akino stood up on the tips of her toes. "Naruto-kun?" He turned towards her to question her, only to have her lips press against his, cutting off any talk that may have come from him. It didn't go any further than that. They just stood there in the middle of the pathway, late at night, her wind blowing lightly in the breeze as ash from his cigarette was carried away with it. A few more seconds passed and Akino pulled back with a wide smile on her face. "I had a lot of fun tonight." "I'm glad you enjoyed yourself." He paused, eyeing her for a moment. Her eyes were slightly glassy. A giddy smile was on her face as she lowered herself back to the ground, grabbing onto his arm and proceeding to play with the bottle by constantly opening and closing the lid. "Yeah, come on, let's get you home." "I don't want to go home tonight," Akino protested, looking up at Naruto with a pout on her face, watching as he sighed. "There is a guest room at mine you can use if you want," he offered, seeing her brighten at the mention. He then remembered, Akino didn't have anyone waiting for her, no parents, no siblings. She would be truly alone if she went home. Well, maybe Rias would pop over to check on her, but otherwise she would be alone. So of course the idea of going home did not seem appealing to her. Akino pulled on Naruto's hood, which she was wearing, and caused it to shadow her eyes, the fur inside the hood acting to keep her much warmer than before, matched with the fact that it was longer than the dress she had worn out tonight made her look incredibly cute. "Plus I need to stay so that you don't eat, Rias." "Why the hell would I eat red?" Naruto questioned, a slight shake of his head following the words at the ludicrous thought of such an act. "'Cause the kitten keeps touching the lion's paws," Akino sung out, as if it answered every problem that existed in the world. "Yes, sure," Naruto muttered out, taking a drag from his cigarette and blowing the cloud out in front of him, his left arm securely in place with his hand resting in his pocket while Akino held onto it like a pillar that was supporting her life. "I am giving her a chance here." "Thank you," Akino whispered, her voice nearly muffled by the wind that blew down the street, though Naruto heard her. "I really want you two to get along." "Oh, stop that, don't make me feel bad about fighting with her, that isn't fair." The rest of the walk was made in relative peace, either really having much to say. It didn't take them that much longer to reach Naruto's apartment. He fumbled around in his pockets for a moment before pulling out his keys and unlocking the door. The lights were already on, and it seemed that Kiba had fallen asleep on the couch. His clothing was still a messy, meaning that he more than likely dropped as soon as he made it home from his training. A sigh escaped Naruto's mouth as he turned to face Akino. "I'll put him to bed, you just wait here a moment." Akino nodded at his words and started to play with her bottle again. It was still half full and her goal was to finish it before falling asleep. She watched as Naruto walked up to Kiba and picked the boy up like he weighed nothing before vanishing down the hall for a while. A couple of minutes passed by and Akino was about to go check if everything was alright before she saw Naruto coming back, now in a pair of cotton tracksuit pants and a tank top. He was rubbing the back of his head as he let out a tired yawn. "Do you want something to eat before bed?" He saw that Akino was struggling to come up with an answer, so he just went ahead and made them some instant ramen. It was pretty good, not as good as homemade or that stand down the street, but it was still ramen, so it was up there in the charts. The reason for Akino struggling to find an answer was not due to the fact that she didn't know if she wanted something to eat or not. It was due to the fact that she could see the large arms of Naruto outside of his normal shirt, not to mention the tribal marking on his right arm. When did he get a tattoo? That was something she should know about. After all, she spent quite a bit of time with him. She didn't know why, but she always just felt so warm when she was near the elder blonde brother. A short burst shot through her body and Akino widened her eyes. "I will be right back." She quickly ran down the hall and into the bathroom, Somehow her body had neglected to inform her of her need to use the restroom until it became incredibly dire. Naruto stood there with a small amount of confusion on his face before he gave a light shrug. Akino didn't take too long to come back and seat herself across from him at the bench, slurping the noodles up from her cup. Dinner was a quiet affair, and the two parted ways with Akino moving to the guest room and tucking herself in for the night, trying to rid herself of a spinning room as she did, the empty bottle resting on the nightstand beside her. His blue eyes blinked themselves open, protesting slightly against the action, though he didn't see the normal color of his incredibly pale orange wall. No, instead there was black hair in front of his face. His lips pursed as he found that his arm was no longer under his control. It would seem that something had taken it into its clutches during the night. Which in itself was impressive. He was normally a very light sleeper. He should have awoken as soon as his door opened, yet this person was laying on his bed, holding his arm draped over her waist and in between her impressive bust. "I hope you're Akino, or this is going to be a strange morning." There was a soft giggle as the form turned around, blinking her violet eyes at Naruto. "I am. Now for what reason did you sneak into my bed, Naruto-kun?" "You're in my apartment, Akino, and this is my bed. When I left you last night you were in the guest room." Shrugging to himself, Naruto got up and looked at the time. "Red will be here soon, you should get up too." He had taken his pants off before bed, thankful that he left his boxes on last night this time. Picking them up off the ground, he let out a sigh as he walked down the hall, never paying attention to the eyes trained on his behind as he entered the bathroom. Akino slowly woke herself up and looked around the room she was in. It was quite clean, so long as you didn't mind the desk. It seemed to be covered in many sheets of paper, character profiles and backstories littering the pages if her quick glance was correct. Moving around, she saw her name on a wall. Name, Himejima Akino, surname first. Age, 17, corrected from 16 as it would appear that I have missed her birthday. Peace, Queen. Race, devil/human/fallen. Personality, somewhat flirtatious. She seems to care deeply for her friends, though even going out of her way to make sure that they are comfortable in what they are doing. Currently she seems to be acting as a mediator between myself and Red. A kind girl, though she seems to be under some pressure from the students at Ko having placed her on a pedestal. Likes, seems to enjoy Oriental tea and ceremonies, may be attributed to her upbringing in the Himejima clan before the murder of her mother. Though strangely she seems to be both a sadist and a masochist. Dislikes, angels, both fallen and otherwise. Akino seems to have a dislike to herself as well, believing her blood to be dirty or cursed. She dislikes people bad-mouthing her friends but will sometimes wear a strained smile when she is trying to keep the peace between groups. Issue, Akino has an issue with her father. I wasn't able to get much, but it seems like he wasn't able to save her mother in time. Maybe her young eyes missed the fact that her father was trying so hard? I do not know. I do not believe that it is my place to intervene, though regardless I think I should try to ease her into. Find something interesting, Akino? A voice mused behind Akino, causing her to freeze in her tracks. The page was plucked from her hands and his blue eyes skimmed it for a moment. How do you know so much about me? She questioned weakly. Though Naruto gave a small shrug, I did some digging. Just like I know the reason that Rias is so frantic about forming her period, she wants to be able to challenge Riser Phoenix to break off the marriage contract between their families. Information is powerful, and the more of it I have, the better I can write about something. Plus you devils are quite bad at hiding things. I wonder if Rias knows why she is in charge of this area or not. Naruto mused lightly to himself before lightly pushing Akino on the shoulder. Now out of my room. But you. Yeah, each member of the peerage has a sheet just like yours. Akame has one and even Kaniko's older sister has one, though Kuroka's is much longer than anything I have on you guys. Sans Red, that is. He pursed his lips slightly before lightly pushing Akino again. Out. I have things I am working on in here, things I don't want people to see, so out. Still a little shocked, Akino walked out of the room, blinking rapidly as she approached the guest room only for Kiba to open his door, his eyes glassy from sleep still but quickly coming together. He was wearing a pair of tracksuit pants like Naruto, and in his right hand was a blade, pointed forward. He met eyes with Akino and both gave the other a shocked expression. Akino-senpai? Era, is your sword always this ready in the morning, Kiba-kun? She managed to give a small teasing despite her situation, watching as his cheeks gained a light dusting. What are you doing here so early? He managed to get out despite the nervous feeling in his chest. She stayed the night, Kiba. Oh, also I am pretty sure that Kaniko is now a tomato, and she is seated on our couch. Nisan, you're back. Did you sleep well last night? Kiba questioned, somewhat surprised that Naruto was home already. Normally he wouldn't be looking at coming back until dinner time tonight. Naruto walked out of his room and closed the door behind him, a questioning look in his eye. You've gotten a bit stronger, Kiba. Keep it up and we might spar again. With that he walked down the hall towards the kitchen. I am starting on breakfast, so hurry yourself up and get ready for the day, both of you. Akino watched as Naruto walked by. Just how much did he know about them all? A small call of good morning Chibi earned a small smile on her face. At the least he seemed to care for them all somewhat. Thankfully she had a spare change of clothes in the guest room from when she changed into her dress last night. After a quick shower she would be fine, maybe some painkillers to dull the throbbing of her head as well. Rias smoothed out her winter cardigan as she looked at the door in front of her. She was clad in a pair of jeans and a light cream blouse. Taking a breath and she moved to knock at the door only for it to open and a pair of hazel eyes come into view, giving her a blank stare. Taking too long, Kaneko explained simply before turning on her feet and entering the apartment again. Rias blinked in slight shock. She hadn't expected Kaneko to be here. Though now that she was here she couldn't push it back any longer. Nodding to herself and steeling her nerves she walked in, closing the door behind herself and taking her shoes off, her designer bag hanging from her shoulder as she softly stepped through the hallway, the wonderful smell of what seemed to be breakfast reaching her nose. She was not under the impression that Naruto cooked. She had always believed it to be Kiba as his bentos looked so well made. Though Naruto seemed to believe he could, and if breakfast tasted anything like it smelt, then she would have to believe in him too now. Coming around the corner she was forced to pause again. Akino was sitting there with a cheery smile on her face, her head resting atop her hands with her elbows propped against the bench below her. Though there was something out of place, it took her a few moments to figure it out, though when she did Rias felt like hitting herself. Akino was wearing Naruto's jacket. It was much too big for her, and in fact made her look incredibly cute. Was starting to wonder if you were going to come in red, though it seemed like Chibi decided against my wait and see method. The voice was deeper than she had heard in a while. Turning to her left she saw Naruto standing there in his glory. His blonde hair was a little longer, and his muscles seemed to be more defined, sculpted even out of the finest marble. Yes, she had seen him recently from his appearance on television, though he was nicely dressed then and wasn't showing off his body. A body that males would die to have and females would kill to ogle. She saw the markings on his shoulder, pondering when he got a tattoo, though it didn't go much further than that. Not Chibi, came the monotone reply from across the room. Sitting down at the couch was Kaneko, who was sipping at a cup of tea. Her stoic gaze though was strictly focused on the tray of biscuits in front of her. Now you're Chibi, all this bundle of awesome wrapped into a small package, or would you prefer loli? There was a slight chuckle from Naruto while Akino giggled. Rias had to wonder if this was normal for them. Everyone seemed so at ease just relaxing in the morning. It is red, she is late, is she not? It was Alpha. It had been a while since she last heard him. She didn't even really hear people speak about him anymore. No, now that she thought about it, she didn't even know that Kaneko and Akino would see Naruto outside of school. Though after last night she should have figured that they would be close. Akino did go out to a party with Naruto and let him take care of her apparently. Though Akino seemed way too pleased with herself, no way, she wouldn't, would she? Akino's smile only grew wider as she saw the horrified look cross Ria's face. Why, you didn't, did you? Oh, so you can speak red? I had thought you became a mute? Naruto offered. Rias crinkled a brow in confusion before noticing that she hadn't replied to him at all. With a haphazard blink at her misconduct she gave a small bow. Sorry, I was just a little nervous. I guess things have changed since we last met. After all, you have become quite famous now, correct? Butcho asked, even though she watches whenever you are on T.V. How cruel of her to play pretend, Akino quipped, quickly causing Rias to blush. If you were asking Akino about us sleeping together, well, we did, in the sense that she was able to sneak into my room while I was sleeping and curl up next to me, Naruto reasoned as he moved further into the kitchen and flipped what was on the stove with a quick movement of his hand, before seemingly dancing through the kitchen and doing a large number of tasks in a rather fluid movement. Rias took a seat next to Akino and blinked in shock when a cup of tea was placed in front of her by Naruto. She hadn't even seen him move to give it to her, yet she saw his strong hand leaving it in front of her seat. He was moving so fast, or was it just with organized practice that he was able to know when he could and couldn't do everything in front of him to the best to give the best results for his actions? It is in Nissan's feet, Kiba explained, causing Rias to look down at the older blonde's feet. He was hovering, just off the ground, giving him the ability to slide all over the ground using his magic. How much would have had to train to be able to move like that without tripping over or sliding well past his target? It lasted a few minutes longer before breakfast was served. It was a simple meal, some fish, rice, bacon, scrambled eggs and a small side salad along with toast. Rias thought it looked much too simple, though upon tasting it she noticed that the dishes were filled with herbs and small amounts of spices to give it a bit of an extra kick. Like normal, breakfast was a relatively quiet affair, Kaneko and Kiba leaving to go train shortly after it. Apparently it was the reason that the chibi had come over, not for the breakfast that she never missed, but to get Kiba so that they could train together. Akino was looking between the two still left with her. Naruto was doing the dishes while Rias seemed to be mulling over her thoughts, probably on what to say. Naruto Rias trailed slight, hearing him put down the dishes that he had just finished drying. I haven't asked anything of you before, but I think I will try it now. Akino inwardly sighed while Naruto rose a brow, wondering where she was going with this. Do you think it would be okay if we tried to start things over between us? I understand that I may have just been giving out orders before, and because of your situation, you cannot refuse. Hey, you noticed that now, do you read? Naruto mused out softly. He refilled the teacup in front of Rias and got himself a cup of coffee. Akino looked up at him with a confused glance. You're here often enough that you know where everything is now anyway. Akino pouted. So you treat Rias differently to me? Of course, Red isn't here every second day for dinner. Naruto turned to the raven-haired girl who just continued to pout. Basically it means that I don't trust her in my kitchen yet. Letting out a small sigh, Naruto picked up his cup of coffee and took a long sip from it. To start over would mean that we would have to pretend that what has happened never did. That would mean pretending that I never wrote Bloodstained Sister, also that Akame either never existed or that she was still alive. We cannot start from the start, but I am willing to give this friendship you are offering a chance, Naruto finished, his deep blue eyes scanning Rias for her reaction to his words. Her sea foam orbs blinked once, twice. It seemed as if she was wrapping her mind around the words that were still hanging in the air for all to hear. You're right. Trying to pretend that nothing happened would be an insult to those that have been caught up in between our relationship. There was a touch of remorse in her voice. Your book, is it accurate? Naruto rose a brow in her direction. Akame, it is very much like what I wrote. There are of course some differences, but even those still stay true to the events that happened around her. Rias lowered her head. Then I cannot apologize enough. I have not fully read your book yet, but what I have read so far, Akame was a much better person than everyone painted her to be. I guess we can skip things ahead a bit. The real reason why you're here is quite simple, isn't it, Rias? Akino and the girl in question gave him surprised looks. As far as they knew, it was the first time he had actually called her by her name. What do you mean? Riser Phoenix. Naruto trailed, watching her eyes go wide as dread started to seep in. How do you can? I do not think that it matters at this point. To be honest, I am not fond of the idea of an arranged marriage anyway. Alpha, run program number 9. A blue spark appeared next to Naruto, causing Akino and Rias to wonder where he had been before. Alpha always just seemed to vanish when you weren't watching him closely. Understood. The orb moved around and started to float near Naruto's head, entering into orbit as it glowed dully. Our preparations have shifted to 10%. Should we divert all attention to program 9? No, can you make a projection of the current data? Naruto's words prompted Alpha to undergo a transformation of sorts. His body split, while the orb that made up his body seemed to split down the middle, and a large glowing light shone brightly at the wall behind them. As you can see, Naruto motioned to the image as it straightened out to show Riser with a large amount of information about him scrambled around. I have been spending some of my time coming up with a plan of action to deal with Riser Phoenix, and anything he may be able to bring our way. Naruto ran a hand through his hair. As you heard, we have already dealt with 10% of the possible outcomes that would happen, though it would seem that we have run into a snag recently. That recent 10% should be much less, as we decided to include the possible chance of battle in order to resolve the issue. Rias looked in shock as a large amount of lines started flying through the screen listing different ways that a conversation could turn with just a few simple words. You have put so much thought into this, Rias trailed. A small scoff left Naruto's mouth. Of course. If you were to be married to that perverted freak of nature that calls himself a high-class devil, your entire peerage would more than likely become little more than his playthings and sex toys. And to be honest, I don't want to test if the flaming bird is also a flaming homo. Really, there are some things I just don't want to know. Of course, he was putting in this much effort. The outcome affected Kiba. If Kiba was not drawn into the situation, would Naruto even care about her situation? It was possible. He did say that he didn't like the idea of arranged marriage, though if Akino asked him to, maybe he would. Akino, after all, seemed to be close to Naruto, much closer than she had thought after all. She honestly couldn't picture him being so calm about her sneaking into his room if he didn't at least have some attachment to her. Inwardly she sighed and spared a glance to the girl in question. She was currently wearing his most notable piece of clothing, so much so that it had become something of his image, and neither of them had said a word about it. Though knowing Akino, she could just be doing it to screw with her, and if she spoke to Naruto about it beforehand, he might have found it best to go along with it just to provoke her. Looking back to the screen, she saw that the information was coming to an end. And that is how I plan on going about this, questions? Rias looked to Naruto in shock. She hadn't even noticed he had been speaking. She glanced back to Akino, who seemed to be okay with what was happening. How long do you think it will take to finish your preparations? At the current rate, a little less than 100 days, Naruto remarked with a small wave of his hand. He didn't feel bothered in the slightest. Seeing as action doesn't need to be taken until Red finishes school here, that should be more than enough time. Akino pursed her lips slightly in thought. If it isn't an issue, do you think you could have it ready sooner? I just want to play on the safer side in case the Phoenix family take action earlier than that. Naruto tapped his cheek a few times. I can rewrite the primary focus of Alpha to have the task done sooner, though my other projects would fall behind. Other projects? Secret. Era. That's not nice, Akino said with a small pout. Tough, Naruto gave a look of triumph, with a small gleam in his eyes in response. Days had passed since that event. Currently Naruto was laying down on the couch, his feet hanging over the edge with a bottle of beer dangling from his fingertips. He had finished his self-study for the month, and now he was relaxing as a way to celebrate. Kiba was out doing that contract thing that devils did. Naruto figured that he should try doing some at some point. He felt his eyelids drop ever so slightly. He could really go for a nap right now. That was until something faint teetered on the edge of his hearing, a soft ringing. No, it felt more like a bell. Sighing to himself, he sat up, pulling the cigarette from his lips and putting it out in the ashtray on the coffee table. Drawing the bottle up, he took a quick drink before hearing the chime of the bell again. It was close, yet it was coming out as a soft sound. Shrugging the noise off, he walked into the kitchen, finishing the bottle in his hand before tossing it in the trash. Walking over to the sink, he ran the water for a little bit, making sure it was nice and cold before rinsing his face with it. The bell sounded out again, only this time it was much closer. He reached out to his right and grabbed a cloth to dab away the water still on his face before blinking his eyes open. He didn't remember putting a cloth down there, and maybe Kiba was using it for something earlier. Turning around, he looked over his apartment before pausing at something that was out of place. There, sitting where he had been moments ago, was someone he knew, well, someone he knew of. Her pristine body was shown off as she had stretched herself out, her kimono barely covering the upper portion of her thighs while the top looked ready to let her beautiful mounds of flesh burst out and greet the world. She shifted her body ever so slightly. The sound of a bell ringing again filled the air as she sat up and looked at him with a seductive smile. You shouldn't stare so much, you know, Naya? Kuroka, Naruto muttered, his lips pressed into a thin line. Oh? Shock was clear on her face. So you do know of me, Naya? I'm in the same peerage as your little sister. That word still left a bad taste in his mouth, though he could not lie about it. He was in fact a servant to Rias Gremory. However much she wanted to twist the words to make it sound otherwise. So what does a king killer like yourself want with me? Kuroka's features tightened a little as she let out a dry laugh. Heh, well, personally I don't see what the fuss is, Naya. But my boss thinks you're a threat, so I came here to give you a choice. Come back with me, Naya. Sorry, but I can't do that. You see, my little brother is still a bit of an idiot, so I am going to need to look out for him for a while, Naruto remarked with a small smile. I told the boss that, Naya. She said that if you didn't come then I was to kill you. Sorry, but it is just my job, Naya. Naruto gave a small shrug of his shoulders. No problem, though to be honest I didn't think I would finish off my day with the pounding of A, but let's get this done. A bright light erupted from Naruto, destroying where Kuroka had been, along with the wall behind her and everything in between. He paused, blinked a few times and tightened his fist. Damn it, I just blew up my own apartment before he could go much further, though he saw Kuroka standing outside, hovering in the air with a large amount of purple orbs floating behind her. Fuck me. Maybe later, Naya. Flicking her hand out, Kuroka sent the orbs flying forward. They impacted with the apartment and erupted in a torrent of purple energy, turning everything inside to ash. Thankfully they were on the top story and she aimed well enough to keep it contained to just his apartment. The smoke, though, was blocking her vision from her target. That was at least until he shot out of the smoke and took to the sky. Her eyes went wide as she saw proud white wings coming out from his back, resting just beneath darker than night devil wings. I see why he has everyone interested now, Naya, Kuroka thought to herself with a wide smile spreading across her face. Things might be interesting after all. You know, I was going to cut you a bit of slack, seeing as I had a small bit of respect for what you did to protect your sister. But then you went and blew up my home. I had stuff in there, like books and booze, not to mention some triple F from the other night. Lifting his hand up in front of his face, Naruto slowly clenched his hand. I just can't forgive you now. Blue particles quickly formed around Naruto before swallowing him whole for a total of 2 seconds. By the time Kuroka had processed what had happened and started to make a move in regard to that, it was already too late as the blue energy broke away, showing Naruto there in the air. His casual wear now gone. From what she could tell, he was in a dark purple leotard, though his waist and below was covered in cloth of a matching color, so she couldn't be sure. The collar of his top was made of fur and stood tall, while there was a deep cut down the front showing off his well-developed body. Kuroka held back the drool that wanted to slip from her mouth at the display in front of her. Though the impressive regal yet still fearsome-looking claw gauntlets helped to rein in her lustful urges. Plus she also had to wonder why this guy was so attached to fur. Was he trying to prove a point of something? Did he really need fur to come from the cuffs of the gauntlets? Kuroka narrowed her eyes as nothing seemed to change sans for his appearance. That was until his chest expanded slowly before becoming more shallow, signaling a deep breath. That was when it all changed. His energy seemed to shoot through the roof. His blue eyes snapped over to her and locked with her eyes. He extended his hand out, and a large number of spears of light formed behind him. Though they felt strange, compared to normal spears of lights, that is, they were an unholy purple in color. Then he closed his fist tight. The reaction was instantaneous as the spears shot forward at speeds that elven archers would be proud of, silently, yet they didn't need sound to convey how dangerous they were. Kuroka stepped between them. There was no explosion. No, they simply vanished when they missed their target. Kuroka could see the last one right in front of her, and ducked down to avoid its piercing strike, only to come face to face with the blonde. It was as if he had just suddenly appeared. She quickly threw a punch at him, only for a purple light to erupt and a sudden impact to rock her body from behind. Spinning in the air while she was skidding along, barely able to keep herself from tumbling from the pressure, she saw him standing there, hovering in the air with his hand stretched out in a position to strike her. There was a small crackle and he appeared beside her, floating along through the air with his leg already spinning around to land a rough kick to her midsection. Kuroka could not dodge, so she did the next best thing, bringing her arms up in a hasty block to protect her internal organs, her bones and muscles protesting under the pressure of his metal-covered leg connecting with her near-bare flesh. It didn't last long though, as his kick ended with a flick sending her flying even further. She vaguely noted that they had left the city of Kuo, now in the sky over treetops. Far in the distance she could see the lights of where they had started. They looked almost like stars now. Bzzzt. It was the crackle again, almost like a dull buzzer. Her head rolled back slightly and she saw the covered foot rapidly descending towards her. She didn't fight it, letting her body become limp as his foot connected, her loose body almost wrapping around him before being sent down to the ground. When she hit the ground, she quickly thought of what hurt more, her harsh crash or the impact of the blonde's strikes. She didn't want to continue testing the theory, so she called on it, her senjutsu abilities, letting herself connect with nature and feeling its power flow through her. Her aching muscles felt slightly numb now and flowing with strength. A grin pulled over her mouth. Like this she could fight him. Though to think that someone who has been a devil for less than a year could force her to go all out. She had attempted to use an illusion on him, though it didn't seem to bother the blonde in the slightest. He also seemed to be in the position of a sacred gear along with being an angel. That in itself left so many questions unanswered. It was impossible for an angel to become a devil, right? Though if he truly was an angel, it would be impossible for him to have a sacred gear, wouldn't it? Pursing her lips slightly in thought, she stood up from the small crater she was in, looking at the blonde as her eyes widened slightly. Could he be the child of a seraph? If so, it would explain why Ophis was so interested in him. The seraph didn't have children, though they were the only angels she knew of that could potentially bed a human without falling, leading to the birth of a child like the one in front of her. If that was the case, why would his seraph parent let him become a devil? Even if his life was in danger, wouldn't they zap down and save him from such a fate? Bzzzt. There it was again, quickly spinning on her feet. Kuroka caught the coming fist, feeling her body slide back along the ground from the force, though she kept her stance, seeing his brow rise slightly. This must senjutsu, the power that drove you to insanity, Naruto mused aloud. That was what he had been told, and what he had been able to gather. What the hell would you know, Naya? Kuroka hissed as she pushed him back before jumping into the air and throwing a spin kick at the blonde, only to have him block with the back of his hand. So you aren't insane? In that case, I really can't forgive you. I will break you and force you to answer for what you've done. Your actions I can understand, but leaving your sibling to fend for herself in the middle of the fallout? That is not what the older siblings should be. We should be the back that they can feel safe behind, protecting them from all that is wrong in the world, not thrusting them into it. Naruto rotated his hand, grabbing the ankle from her kick and quickly moving into a spin with his body, swinging Kuroka towards a tree and watching as she snapped it with her enhanced body. He did it a few more times before coming to the conclusion that it really wasn't changing anything. The trees didn't seem to hurt her much. Gritting his teeth in slight irritation, he stopped spinning, changing his tactic and ripping her over his head and into the ground. It didn't end there though. He rotated his shoulders and landed a harsh punch to her stomach, causing a small amount of spit to fly from her mouth before grabbing her with his other up and ripping his body around to toss her into the air. Bzzzt. He appeared above her, his leg extended as she broke her velocity against it, coming to a standstill. Bzzzt. Below her, a harsh rising kick to push her further into the air. Bzzzt. 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 Higher and higher she flew until they broke through the clouds, the chilling temperature already eating at their bones. BZZZT. Naruto appeared again, in her path as she ascended to the heavens, his leg raised high as he dropped it towards her incoming body, watching as it wrapped around his limb and blood ran from the corner of her mouth. The flick of his leg was the last action he would take in this fight, sending her down to the ground with a speed that turned her into a blur. Her body broke through the clouds and vanished below them. Sighing to himself, Naruto started to float back down to the ground. It didn't take him long, and he could see that Kuroka had some broken bones, though she seemed to be alive, trying to crawl away from her crash site. Truly, to think that Senjutsu would allow her to still be awake after all of that. He thought for sure she would have been knocked out from either his final kick or the impact with the ground. I guess I might have overdone it a bit, Naruto mused, rubbing the back of his head lightly before shrugging the thought away, his armor dispersing as he appeared back in his tracksuit pants and tank top. Kuroka turned around at his voice, shivering at the sight of him walking closer. Well, damn, it looks like he was tougher than you thought, Kuroka. A new voice questioned with what seemed to be a hint of humor in his voice. Stepping out from behind a tree was what Naruto could only really describe as a human monkey. He was wearing that look similar to the kinds worn by the old Imperial Chinese army. He had brown hair, or was it fur? Now Naruto was not really sure how to approach that subject. Also on that line, would it mean that Kuroka was a hairless or a furless? Well, furless wasn't really a word from his memory, so it would have to be the former. The monkey man had a bow staff, which Naruto found odd. They weren't often used anymore, as most did not want to put the effort it took to train to make a blunt instrument lethal. Kuroka looked around to where she heard the voice, a sigh of relief passing through her lips before she cringed from the strain that the action had placed on her body. Biko, be careful, he teleports Naya. The monkey man rose a brow at Kuroka. Yeah, he is a devil. All devils can teleport. Heck, most supernaturals can as well. Baka. I mean, it is instant, and used in battle, Naya. Naruto tuned out their conversation. It seemed more like bickering at this point anyway. Alpha, I need a change. The royal armor drained me too much for one right now. Just a moment, fighting against a monkey yokai that wields a bow. Here we go, initiating change. Thanks, Alpha. Blue particles quickly flooded the body of Naruto and wrapped him up, causing the two Yuki to look at him in confusion before Kuroka widened her eyes, about to tell Biko what it meant before the transformation was done. When he landed, Naruto was clad in what seemed like the top of a one-sleeved kimono that came down to his knees. His left arm was covered by the sleeve, while his right seemed to be covered in tight leather that came to a stop just below his armpit, where it connected with a leather shoulder plate. The kimono was a deep ocean blue with sakura sewn into the back of it. The edges seemed to be woven around with a golden thread. His legs were covered in matching deep blue pants that were loose until just below his knees, the edge of the kimono top, where they found themselves tapped up, while cloth sandals covered his feet. Clutched in his right hand was a katana that gleamed in the moonlight, while his left hand was covered by the sleeve that seemed to be extended slightly past normal length. Biko, that is what Kuroka called you, right? Eh? You caught that, did ya? Well, it's true, I am Biko, and you must be the target. He spun his bow around in his fingers and looked at Naruto with narrowed eyes. It would seem so. I guess that I should proceed with spanking the monkey now, Naruto spoke in the straightest voice possible. Biko could not contain himself and started to laugh and shook his head from side to side. I like you. Now I am scared. Though if we have to go down that route, then I will assure you that I am a top. Naruto lifted the katana up and poised it to strike, the blade facing towards the sky with his left hand resting on the spine of the blade a foot from the tip. Damn it, I almost feel sorry for the ass kicking I am about to give you. Following his exclamation, Biko swung his bow in a wide arc, one which Naruto saw, and he quickly dipped down low to the ground, flipping his blade around in his hand, now holding it in a reverse grip as he closed the distance, taking in the fact that the bow seemed to extend well past the hidden compartment, allowing it to gain length. This meant that this Biko character more than likely had enchantments on his weapon. Naruto saw the slight shift in Biko's arms and wrist, changing the direction of the bow as it came closer to the blonde. Attempting to strike down, Naruto slid to the side in his steps as he continued to bound forwards at an incredible pace. Biko saw that the distance was closing and quickly called back his bow, making it shorter in length and parrying the strike of Naruto. As the distance was finally closed, the blonde spun and kicked Biko in the stomach, though between his armor and the power of nature running through him, Biko hardly flinched at all. That was until Naruto swept at him with his sleeve-covered arm. At first Biko didn't think about dodging. That was until he saw the slight glint from inside the sleeve. He pulled his head back quickly and jumped back, putting a small amount of distance between him and the blonde. He felt something run down his cheek and lifted his free hand up and inspected what it was, though he was already quite positive of what he was going to see, and he was correct. It was indeed his own blood. A feral grin broke across his face. A hidden blade, maybe? Is that what hid inside of that long sleeve? Biko couldn't be sure, but whatever it is incredibly sharp, plus he can't gauge the distance of its strike because it was concealed under the limp-looking sleeve until it strikes. Placing both hands onto his bow, Biko let his grin stretch even wider. I didn't think you would use a trick like that. Naruto didn't give a verbal answer. Instead he leapt forward, spinning in the air with his blade extended and forming a large circle of light energy that cut through the trees around him and pushed Biko back, his enchanted bow not even bending under the strain, though it had managed to gain the monkey's full attention. A devil that would so freely use light energy, you really are interesting, not to mention you seem to have a sacred gear. Man, the others are sitting around at base fucking about while I get to fight someone like you. Biko twirled the staff and charged forward. He would need to fight the blonde in close distance, mostly because apart from his bow, Biko didn't have any sort of ranged attacks. Naruto took the challenge without a second thought. Careful Biko, I think he has angel blood in him, Naya. He didn't even bother to accept or deny Kuroka's words and instead clashed with Biko, checking the monkey's kick with his knee only to feel the force behind it. He had come to the conclusion that Senjutsu was damn cheating. They got such a power boost through being one with nature, what a crock. He twisted the blade in his hand and thrust it forward, watching Biko bend back to dodge the strike meant for his head and loop his leg around the extended hand and placing his hands on the ground, intent on flipping the blonde only for a sharp pain to course through his leg. Looking up, he saw the covered hand moving away as blood poured from a now open wound. Gritting his teeth, Biko jumped away, barely sparing a moment to gather his bearings before thrusting his bow forward as if it were a spear, the end of it extending and clashing with the metal blade of Naruto. Sparks flew through the night sky as the two forces fought. Naruto, seeing that this wasn't changing anytime soon, lifted his covered hand up and shot a spear of light at Biko, who widened his eyes and stepped to the side, letting it pass him and blow away the trees behind him, turning them into a glowing crater. Taking the opportunity, he made Naruto dash forward again, his angel winds spreading out behind him and further increasing his spear. A loud boom sounding out behind him, Biko flinched and quickly pointed his bow at where Naruto had been, feeling it jolt in his hands before the weight suddenly vanished as a loud snap sounded out in the clearing. He moved to check where the blonde was only to stumble forward, his eyes going wide. The armor on his chest fell down to the ground and a large X-shaped gash appeared on his torso. He looked at his bow and saw that the top of it had been snapped off, though there was blood on the end of the bow. He heard a twig snap behind him and turned to see the blonde standing there, a rather large hole in his stomach, his left hand slowly moving to cover it as bright purple flames appeared from not far away, causing Naruto to dodge lest he be caught in the blast. Splinters and wood chippings flew through the air and Biko was barely able to deflect them away from himself. It seemed like Kuroka was up and moving about again. Biko looked down at his body and grimaced. How the fuck was he meant to explain this to everyone? Now he had also lost Naruto again, the man having vanished into the thick trees. He paused, his eyes widening slightly as he felt a monstrous amount of killer intent directed at him, though before he could fully turn he caught the sight of a black pant leg and the heavy clang of metal striking metal. Fuck, not another one of you bastards, growled out the voice of their target. Biko, can you move? Came the stern voice of his newly arrived comrade. I never thought I would be this happy to hear your voice, Arthur, Biko muttered out, trying to stand only to stumble forward. I can move, I guess, not very well though, the bastard cut me deep. Poor baby, Naruto spoke through grit teeth, feeling his arm strained to keep the large blade in front of him at bay. He spun his left hand around to face the blonde male, that looked remarkably similar to himself, only nerdy, possibly even the same age, and let out a spear of light only for a golden magic circle to appear and send the spear flying straight up. Now that just isn't nice, mister. Naruto turned his head ever so slightly to see a young girl, maybe 15. She was clad in a long gray blazer and a black skirt. Around her shoulders was a blue cape with what seemed to be pink flowers on it, while her blonde hair was kept in place by a very much overly sized witch's hat. She also happened to be pointing a wand at him as her bare feet took on what could be considered an unhappy stance. She tried to narrow her bright blue eyes on Naruto, only to flinch when his gaze hardened. Oh, I am so over all this, Naruto trailed, letting Arthur push him back a little. With Arthur now off balance, Naruto spun around him, landing a glacing blow with his blade. At least he figured that he would. That was until that blasted magic circle formed again. Gritting his teeth, he directed his attention to the young witch and sprinted along the ground, quickly closing the distance only for her to break into mist on impact. Luffy, Arthur called out, get Kuroka and Biko together. I will hold him at bay until the preparations are complete. Naruto spun his body and blocked the strike from Arthur before quickly throwing his legs out and landing harsh kicks to the man's ribs. He could see the swordsman wince under the pressure. Humans shouldn't get involved in the supernatural, you'll just get hurt, Naruto muttered out near under his breath. Arthur narrowed his eyes behind his glasses, holding his blade out and keeping it steady. He needed to maintain his focus here, and having his younger sister around would not be good for that. This is the path that will allow me to test my skills the best. Oh, for fuck's sake, Naruto got out through grit teeth. That is such a pathetic reason to do anything. To test yourself? You would throw away your life for something so stupid. I wouldn't expect an angel to understand the simple thoughts of man, Arthur spoke calmly, pushing Naruto back and slashing out with his sword only to watch as Naruto quickly parried and thrust forward. Arthur moved to block, feeling his blade stop Naruto's only to watch it shatter under the pressure of the strike. Tossing it to the side, he let out a small sigh and extended his hand outward. To think that you would break my normal sword so easily. Well, it would seem as though you have now forced my hand. He grabbed onto a hilt that came from a magic circle that appeared next to his hand and drew out a long sword that looked to be masterfully crafted. Arthur took his stance, the new blade positioned in front of him with ease. This is Excalibur Ruler, a holy sword, though saying so to an angel such as yourself is more than likely pointless, as you no doubt knew at the moment that it appeared. So you are Pendragon? That would make you and that girl the missing Pendragon siblings, wouldn't it? Naruto questioned, feeling alpha work on the hole in his stomach. It was painful as crap, but if he could stall long enough, then it would be ready for him to start jumping around again. Indeed, though I have taken notice that you also seem to have wings of a devil. That is interesting and may very well be the reason why Kuroka and Biko were sent to gather you. If that is truly the case, then I cannot let this mission end in failure. You will kneel before me, Arthur ordered Naruto. Naruto felt his body wanting to obey, his knees wanting to go down to the ground. Gritting his teeth, he shook his head and glared at Arthur. How about you go fuck yourself? Screw Alpha. He didn't have enough time to wait for his body to be run through a patch job. He needed to do something now. He slapped his left hand up towards his katana, gripping the hilt tightly with both hands and quickly letting blue particles cover the blade, expanding and turning into a large claymore. Naruto gave a wide swing with his claymore towards Arthur, the latter taking a step back and parrying the strike only for the former to change the flow and stab his blade into the ground, using it as an anchor to throw his body over the top and launch himself at his opponent. Continuing with the roll, he brought the claymore over in a downward slash. Arthur used the flat side of Excalibur to push the claymore away from himself, though Naruto continued forward, landing a harsh kick to his side and sending him back a few feet from the impact as spit flew from his mouth. Arthur snapped his gaze to Naruto with a harsh glare, only to see the blonde already on the move, his large claymore resting on his back. Such a strange style, using the added weight of the weapon to throw his body around instead of trying to become a pillar from which it falls to deal its damage. No, he was staying true. The way he was using the sword was as if it were an extension of his own body. Taking its weight and its potential for damage all into account, even when he was running, he could see that Naruto's body was angled in such a way that the claymore could roll off and slash forward with the momentum that he already held. Arthur jumped back again, just as the large blade would have cleaved him in two. Seeing Naruto's body coming around, he grabbed the foot and made to cut the Achilles tendon, which would make it impossible for the blonde to move. Though before he got a chance, Naruto twisted his body and punched Arthur in the face, shattering his glasses and making the man step back to clear what he could out of his face. It was that moment that the clearing erupted in a red magic circle and the peerage of Rias Gremory stepped out. La Fei came back and saw the new group, her features paling slightly. Arthur, let's go, I have everything ready, we can't do anything more now. Arthur looked at Naruto and the peerage behind him. They seemed to be ready to move if he answered wrong, and Arthur knew he would have his hands full with the blonde in front of him. Despite him already being injured, he shook his head lightly. Very well. He walked over to La Fei, his face still trained on Naruto on the others though. As he reached his sister, a sigh came out of his mouth. I have a feeling this will not be the last time that we meet. May I have your name, seeing as you seem to know all of ours? A grin crossed Naruto's face. Uzumaki Naruto, next time you and your friends want to beat down again, come and find me, alright? Arthur and La Fei vanished, no doubt taking Kuroka and Biko along with them. Naruto let a smile cross his face as he fell to his knees, his armor vanishing once again, his hands going to his stomach and holding the wound there. Rias and her peerage rushed forward, none more so than Kiba and Akino, who were beside him in a flash. Naruto, what happened here? Are you okay? The blonde in question waved his hand lightly at Rias. I kicked their ass, Kuroka, Biko, and given some time I would have beaten Arthur as well, though I did get impaled. He moved his hand back and grimaced at the amount of blood, though he could feel that it was mostly healed now. It was mostly just about closing the hole in the front of his skin. But I guess I am just exhausted. I used my sacred gear a few too many times and used the wrong set of armor for too long. He stood up and stretched himself out, letting the others see the slowly closing wound. Kaneko stepped up and looked at the blonde with uncertain eyes. You fought Winnie-san? Yet Chibi kicked her ass and everything. Was going to lock you two in a room so you could talk it out, but then others kept showing up. Naruto lifted his hand and slowly ruffled the hair of the middle schooler. Was One-san the one that hurt you? Kaneko hesitantly questioned, so did see Naruto as a positive, at least most of the time, role model. She didn't know what she would do if her sister had been the one to hurt him. Naruto gave a light shake of his head. Nah, I kinda did this to myself. I wanted to end the fight quickly, so I shot forward and Biko, the monkey yokai, raised his bow, but I didn't think too much of it, and ended up impaling myself with it. Rias Naruto's energy levels are low. I should take him back to his apartment so that he can rest properly, Akino informed them as she moved her glowing hands away from his body. It seemed like she had been assessing the damage that had been done. That can happen. You see, our apartment got blown up. Naruto promptly ignored their shocked looks. I guess I'll go look for a house tomorrow. Kaneko looked to Kiba. Kiba-senpai can stay with me. Kaneko had a rather small apartment, though that was what she wanted. To be honest, having two living there would be a little cramped, and it would be even more so if it was Naruto instead of Kiba, so it was the best choice. Akino felt her throat go a little dry. Then I will look after Naruto tonight. We could say that I am returning the favor, no? Ha, I guess you could, Akino. Naruto gave a warm smile as his eyes slowly closed, and his breathing evened out, showing he had passed out. The events of the day having caught up to him. Akino wrapped her arms around his chest, being careful of his wound and shifting him into a position that should be more comfortable. Yofufu, do not worry, I will take good care of you, Naruto-senpai. A heavy breath left Naruto as he opened his eyes, a strange pressure on his chest. Looking down at the cause, he found a nest of long black hairs sprawled out over his body. Alpha, how are we looking? Ah, you are awake. Akino helped in our healing because of the light in her body from her angelic blood. Fallen or not, she was able to help fuel me while yours was empty. Naruto let out a sigh, though this caused the head on his chest to stir, the body along with it as it tilted up, and hazy violet eyes blinked at him in confusion. As her eyes became more clear, Naruto was able to see red lightly dust the young girl's cheeks. Hey, are you feeling better now? Yeah, Alpha said you helped us out, thanks. We would have been fine. But you did speed up our recovery. I was wondering though, did you really want to see me naked this much that you would strip me while I was passed out? Critical hit. The blush on Akino's face spread rapidly as she coughed, clearly surprised by what had been said by the man under her body at the moment. It was part of the process to transfer my energy into you. Relax, Akino. I am just pulling your leg. Naruto had a small chuckle to himself as Akino quickly got up from him. She noticed that the air was much colder than his warm frame. Was it okay that I did that? She questioned hesitantly, hiding her face from the blonde who casually sat up, not really bothered by what had happened. He took note that they seemed to be in a shrine, laying down on a mattress that rested on the floor. It was actually surprisingly comfortable. Naruto pursed his lips slightly. I didn't mind, to be honest. I was a little relieved that it was you and not someone else. That just would have been awkward. Akino quirked a brow. What do you mean by that? She tried her best to cover her body with the sheet that she had put over the top of them. Let's be honest, if it was red, I think I would be pretty damn freaked out. With Kaneko, that would be incredibly freaking awkward. Well, Sona might not be bad. She has that cute glasses look, but the super serious side, honestly, I think that she would be a complete freak in bed. You, though, were definitely the best one that I could have woken up to without any memory. Naruto tapped his chin a few times with his finger. Plus, it has happened before, so the major shock of it is kinda gone now. Was still pretty nice though, so if in the future you ever need to do it again, go ahead please. A warm smile spread across Akino's face. You're terrible. I prefer the term free-spirited, Naruto replied, pausing for a moment. So do you just like my body being on display, or are you going to tell me where you stashed my clothes? The temptation to not tell you is quite high. Fine, I guess I can go out naked, though don't blame me for what happens. Naruto waved his hand lightly and stood up, walking towards the door only to have it blocked by the Akino wrapped up in sheets. Her eyes closed and a look of defeat on her face. Does the concept of shame mean anything to you? She whispered out. Naruto, though, gave a light shrug. To have shame is to have regrets, so of course I have shame, though in saying that, I think I can be pretty proud of my body. Or are you trying to tell me that I should be ashamed of my body? Akino turned her face away slightly. I will answer your question if you answer mine. She released her hold on the sheets and they fell free, causing Naruto to widen his eyes at her action. Do you think I should be ashamed of my body? Bringing a hand up to his temple, Naruto let out a small laugh. Well, I can say for sure that I understand the situation of your father a little, he trailed, and Akino narrowed her eyes before trying to turn away, only for Naruto to grab her wrist, holding her in place. Geez, at least let me finish. If your mother was anything like you, both personality and looks, then it would be next to impossible for one to not feel a large amount of lust for you. She clenched and released her fist, feeling the sweat in her palms. Her mouth moved and it looked like she had said something. Sorry, I didn't hear that? Naruto asked her, feeling her body tense slightly. Thank you. As to answer your question, I am having trouble trying to hold myself back from pushing you to the ground. Naruto released her hand and gave a small laugh. I don't think I would be against that. I can't tell if you are serious or not, Akino whispered out. Without saying another word, Naruto closed the distance, pressing Akino up against a wall and capturing her lips with his own, seeing her eyes shoot out wide before her body melted under his gentle touch, his hands that traveled along her legs. One cupped her behind and she lifted her other leg up to wrap around his waist, holding them together while his other hand moved to the small of her back and pushed her waist in closer. Akino parted her mouth as her breast pushed up against his muscled chest, his rough and calloused hand exploring the outside of her body. Her hands reached up to his hair and grabbed it tightly as she fought for control in the tongue war. Right now she did not even know if she wanted to be the winner. Her hips lowered themselves slightly, and she shook in pleasure at feeling his body spread apart, her lips ever so slightly. Rubbing against her clitoris, she felt something touch her leg that was still on the ground and grow harder and bigger as it ran up her leg. Her eyes going wide as she realized what it was. She pulled her lips away and rested her head against his chest, lowering herself down to the ground and feeling his rod now poke her in the stomach. I think I know that you are serious now. Really? Because I could show you again if you wish? A faint smile crossed Akino's face as her hand lowered to his penis, stroking it gently. I don't know if you could restrain yourself enough to show me again. She pumped him a few more times, each one harder than the last as if to prove a point. Continue to tease me and you won't be leaving this room for the rest of the day. Akino paused in her pumps and looked up at him, tilting her head to the side cutely. Is that a threat or a promise? A bit of both, I would say. Her hand slowly let go of his member. You don't have time to make good on that. That is, unless you plan on staying here with me again tonight? A part of her hoped he would say yes. Though she saw Naruto think on his answer. Yeah, I guess I do need to find a place for me and Kiba to stay, though it might take us a few days to move in. Would it be okay if I stayed until things are finalized? What the hell did she say to that? Quickly thinking on her feet, she tried to find a flimsy excuse, not wanting him to stay in such a rundown place like this. I don't really think you would like it here on second thought. Naruto rose a brow at her in confusion. Haven't you ever heard the saying, it is the people that make a party? Akino lowered her head a little. With that, he had sealed the deal. If he believed that it would be fine as long as she was there, then she really couldn't say no to him. So now they were walking down a street. Having finished getting dressed, they were now heading to the real estate agent. Akino was in a pair of jeans with a long-sleeved sweater again. Naruto was clad in his tracksuit pants and his jacket. Apparently Akino had a hold of it before his apartment was destroyed. It would explain why he wasn't able to find it the last few days. They entered the retailers and quickly found what they were looking for, what Naruto was looking for. It was a nice house, 5 bedrooms, a study and 2 bathrooms with an ensuite in the master room, of decent size and near Ko Academy. He would need to go to the bank. He didn't have enough money to pay it off fully while still leaving funds for himself and Kiba until his next release. That trip didn't last long either. Akino found herself surprised at how organized Naruto was. If one were to see him at school, they may believe him to be a slacker, though she knew well that it wasn't the case. If anything, he more than likely found the school life boring, hence why he was so against going, though Rias had forced him into the situation. It was after their trip to the bank that Naruto's phone rang. Apparently he said it was Grafia once the conversation was over. She had informed him that they would take care of the repair costs and replace everything in the apartment, only for him to inform her of the new plan, to which she agreed, thinking it sounded like a good choice. So there were a handful of devils that were going to be going out and buying furniture for Naruto's house after inspecting it and moving it all into place. Though he had never met Grafia before, even Naruto would agree that she seemed like someone who had her head on tight. Though none of this was really helpful to Akino, she was not sure why she was following Naruto, and she was sure if you asked in a few hours she would only be able to give you the same answer. But she did know that when she was near him, she felt warm and safe. Her stomach seemed to do small flips of joy when he brushed against her, normally on accident, although sometimes Akino may have bumped into him on purpose just to get the feeling once more. Clearing her thought and mind, Akino made to speak. So what actually happened last night? Naruto rose a brow at her before giving a light laugh. Seems like Kaniko's sister wanted me for something. She and her groupies didn't like the fact that I wasn't found of going quietly. One thing led to another, and I was impaled and had my apartment blown up. There was a gasp from Akino. Kuroka was the cause? Nah, it seemed like she was following orders from a boss or something. It's no big deal. Naruto waved it off like it was nothing though. Yo, Mr. 9. The loud call caused the 2 teens to turn around looking for who made it, only to see a giant of a man walking towards them. He had a small beard, had darker skin, and a pair of shades covering his eyes. His hair was blonde, braided and pulled back under a white bandana, while he seemed to wear some kind of outfit that could be described as a mixture of white-black and a Shaolin Kung Fu outfit with bits of leather attached to the shoulder. Honestly, he didn't seem to fit in at all. "Obi, what's up, man?" Naruto replied calmly. Was he not at all surprised at such a large man walking down the street? The Nonbi walked up and bumped his fists with Naruto, the two giving each other small grins. "Mr. Nine, I am surprised to see you looking so fine. I heard there was some trouble, so I started looking on the double. But when I arrived, Mr. Nine still has his shine." "Really? He wraps everything?" Akino inwardly groaned while Naruto gave a light chuckle. "Who is this pretty penny? Is her name by chance Jenny?" Akino could feel her brow twitching. How could anyone think it was alright to talk like this? "Nah, this is Akino. She is cool with the whole dove thing, so go berserk." Naruto spoke for her. Was this a good or bad thing? So far she hadn't had to say a word to this strange muscle man, but Naruto did just take away her chance to make an impression of herself. Plus, is he calling himself a dove? Is that some kind of code? Though when she thought of doves, white wings came to mind. Was that his way of saying that B was a supernatural existence? The muscle man put his hands in the air and spun on the spot, making a siren-like noise. "Nah, I gotta go find my car," he spoke after a little bit. You lost it again?" "Drinking, though maybe I should call it sinking dewey." And like that, B was gone. Akino blinked, once, twice, and even a third time as her mind tried to process what it had just seen. Thankfully, or not so thankfully, she wasn't sure yet, Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder and gave a small smile. "B is a super strong yokai, served as the Kyuubi Yasaka's bodyguard. He can be a little eccentric and excitable though." Akino slowly nodded. I can see that though her mind caught up with his words, it was still having trouble processing the strange entity known as B. "You know the former bodyguard of the Kyuubi, the leader of the yokai?" Naruto tilted his head to the side lightly. "Well, yeah," he rubbed his head lightly and gave her a confused look. "That is what I said, isn't it?" "What I mean was, how do you know him?" "One of the AB combo." "I know them both," Naruto stated simply. "Ran into them at a bar one night. Was a good night. A suplexed a werewolf and I kicked around some prissy vampire. Think his name was Edward. Anyway, we know each other." The Queen of Rias brought her hand up to her temple and rubbed it gingerly. "I wonder if you are addicted to getting yourself into trouble, or whether it just finds you on its own." "I would have to say that it is a bit of both." Naruto put his hands into his pockets and pursed his lips slightly as he looked forward. "Is that a problem?" Akino let out a small giggle. "I think it may be part of your charm." "But don't butter me up. I reckon I am sweet enough as it is." High up above, well, at least that is where humans believed it to be, but the reality was rather different. It was not above, more like it was beside the realm of mortals, a different dimension of sorts, not an existence that rested above. Anyway, we would be speaking about heaven, the place that was occupied by the race called angels. Sitting in a bright room was Michael, the chief seraph, and the one that was acting as God while the being had left the building. On his lap rested a large book. The pages were made of a fine gold and words were inscribed in them, letters that followed the angelic rule, though to the average human they would look much more like scribbles than anything else. A sigh escaped his young-looking face as he brushed a few locks of his golden hair out from his eyes. Hovering in the air in front of him was a crystal ball, one that he used to view those that resided in the realm of mortals. He closed the book as the faint steps of someone approaching reached his ear. The title of the book was Naruto the Omega. Michael was of course not the one to write it, nor would he be the one to finish writing it. The book only went so far, though in his eyes, that was all that was needed. In a flash of brilliant gold the book vanished. The figure that was approaching stopped just behind Michael. Her long golden hair was wavy while her ocean blue eyes, which were normally so bright, looked a little saddened at the current time. "It does not feel right to let him suffer like this. We could embrace Naruto like he should have been from the start, brother." Michael heard her words, yet he continued to look at the orb in front of him. "He does not appear to be suffering to me, Gabriel. In fact, he seems quite happy with his current situation. The only complaint he seems to have is the fact that he is now a devil." Gabriel tightly gripped at the dress just above her stomach. "I do not approve that we must sit by and watch. I want to hold him. I want to shower our youngest brother with the love that he deserves." "You will be able to in time, Gabriel. For now, though, we must let his story play out. If we were to interrupt, then there may be a divergence from what was meant to happen. That cannot be allowed, no matter what we see." "I do not like that tone, brother. Are you hiding something from us?" "From me?" Gabriel clutched at her dress a little tighter, her knuckles becoming white under the pressure. "If I knew the plan, I may be able to rest easier." Michael looked at the orb and frowned slightly. He wondered why supernatural creates seemed to flock towards Naruto. Could they feel what he was? He shook his head lightly. "When it is complete, you will be able to cuddle your youngest brother. Until then, Gabriel, Do trust in myself and the plan. We shall keep him on track to lead to the desired result that you seek. That heaven seeks. That is, if he will let you, Michael quipped at the end. He didn't need to turn around to see the pout on Gabriel's face. And why wouldn't he want cuddles from his big sister? Because, Gabriel, you are not the person in heaven he wants to see most. Not only that, but how do you expect him to react when he ends up here? Did you think that he would just cheerfully accept this task that has been laid out before him? Michael didn't receive an answer. This is also why I wish for him to continue to live as he does now. He will not be able to be so carefree as time passes. Gabriel turned on her feet. I will protect him. Even if you will not get involved, I will make sure that he stays safe. With that, she vanished in a beautiful pillar of light. Michael let out a small sigh as the book appeared in his lap again, opening back up to the current time, and Gabriel left, her heart fluttering between staying true to her duties or protecting her youngest sibling. In the end, her love for her family was too strong. She left heaven to find him, to find Naruto. It truly does scare me how accurate you can be, father, Michael mused. The book in his lap was thousands of years old, and yet it still played out perfectly, like it was being written moment by tense moment. Knowing that Naruto would be safe for now, Michael moved back to the core, to plug himself into the system and grant blessings to all he could. Gabriel had been a busy seraph these past few days. It was because of this that she was looking outside of the window of her new house, watching as her neighbors moved in. Though there were quite a few people there, only 2 were worthy of note to hear. The Silverette that was watching her youngest brother like a hawk, and said brother. She of course knew about the fallen child Akino Himejima, though her relation with Gabriel's brother was something that the seraph, bar Michael, were unsure of. Casting a small illusion over herself, along with some masking spells that would hide her magical signature, she grabbed the muffins she had prepared and walked out to the door. The moment her foot stepped outside, she saw Naruto turn to face her, his deep blue eyes quickly scanning over her before the others had even moved. His body relaxed slightly. She wondered what Alpha had said about her. Or if he had said anything at all. Would Alpha, the sacred gear that helped to create all others, along with God's system, would it see through her disguise? Gabriel patted down her sundress as she walked forward, holding the basket of muffins in front of her lap as she moved. Graphia turned and narrowed her eyes on the approaching blonde. She didn't know why, but something about her felt off. As she came closer, Naruto let out a sheepish chuckle and rubbed the back of his head. I hope we aren't making too much noise. I just want to get everything done quite quickly so that we can relax for the rest of the day. Akino, Kiba, Rias and Kaneko looked at the strange lady, who gave a light giggle back to Naruto's words. Heavens no. If it wasn't for the trucks earlier this morning, I wouldn't have even guessed anyone was moving in today. Though thankfully it was today, otherwise these would have gone to waste. No. She offered the basket to Naruto, who took it with a wide grin. Thanks. Shifting it around, he stuck out his right hand and held it out for her. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. The shy blonde one behind me is my little brother, Kiba Yuto. The other smaller shy one is Kaneko. She doesn't talk much. Then you have Akino. She is pretty calm. Then there is Red. Naruto looked over to Rias and gave a small shrug. I guess you could call her their leader or something? Gabriel rose a brow. Oh, forgive me. I thought you were one group. Naruto shrugged. Believe what you see, but don't see as I do, right? Wise words from one that looks so young. Oh dear, I never did introduce myself. She quickly shot forward and grabbed Naruto's hand. He had at some point lowered it, figuring that she was against physical contact or something. I am Gabby Angelos. Nice name, said Naruto with a smile. It would appear that your manners are still somewhat lacking, Naruto. Graphia spoke stoically, causing Gabriel to inwardly think of pinning the woman to a cross. How dare she reprimand Gabriel's younger brother? Yeah, well, the last time I introduced you, you told me off. I swear women are just too difficult. Anyway, Gabby, this is Graphia. She is the maid for Red's family. Naruto gave the silver-haired woman a light wave, which she used to lift up the bottom of her outfit slightly and bow a little. Gabriel, though, craned her neck to the side slightly. Isn't being a maid a little outdated nowadays? She took note of the ever-so-slight twitch of Graphia's brow. It was the little victories. Though about what you said before, if the game is not challenging, then you don't really feel like you have accomplished anything at the end, right? Oh ho! I guess when you put it like that it makes some sense, though it also seems to objectify women slightly, though seeing as it was a woman that said it first, does that make it okay? Naruto tapped his chin a few times and thought, I don't think it is worth the effort to think about it, though you brought up a good point, Gabby. Sorry, I don't have anything for you because you moved in recently as well, right? Gabriel took a small step back and giggled before nodding her head. It would appear that he was quite observant. I did, and you need not worry about such a thing, Naruto-san. The blonde scrunched up the side of his mouth. Nah, I want to pay you back so that we're even. Gabriel gave a quick nod. Very well, then I shall look forward to it, Naruto-san, though for now I believe I shall leave you all with it, or would you like some assistance? Please say yes. Gabriel inwardly thought. though she hid her disappointment when Naruto said everything was fine and that they would take it from here. With that she left, going back inside her own home and heading to the kitchen. None of the other seraphim enjoyed her cooking. Apparently she was bad at it, so now that she had some time she would practice. The movers seemed to pick up the pace rapidly as Grafia shot them a glance. She grabbed Naruto by the hand and led him inside, the others following behind her. Erecting a small barrier around the group, her eyes turned to the direction of Gabby's house. That woman, she has an abundance of light. Naruto gave a small wave of his hand. Though it is Monday morning, it is possible that she was at mass yesterday. A cross was beneath her dress after all. Grafia pursed her lips slightly. It is possibly that I have overreacted, though that could well be due to the fact that you were so recently attacked. We should have been more vigilant. Everyone worries so much. First it was Akino, then Kiba, and now you, Grafia? I am fine, really. I may not look like it, but I am pretty hard to kill, you know. Naruto tapped at the place where the hole had been yesterday, a small smile on his face as he lifted his shirt, showing it was completely healed. Not a scratch, see? Plus I was still kicking some ass with it, you know. That is beside the point, Naruto-sama. You were attacked inside of Gremry territory. It not only looks bad on the Gremry family, but it was an event that should have never been allowed to happen, Grafia sternly informed the blonde, though he just gave her a shrug and put the muffins down on the bench, taking the cloth off from the top of them and picking one up. Hey, look, Chalkship. Naruto seemed excited. That was until he took a bite. Grafia, I believe that you may be right, that woman is dangerous. Naruto placed the muffin on the bench and calmly walked away down the hall and into where the bathroom was, a groan following his footsteps. Raising a brow, Grafia moved over to inspect the treat, only to see that it hadn't finished cooking. Also, the chalk chips were raisins. Well, it was not the way she wanted to get a point across, nor did she think it was a very valid point, but maybe he would listen to her. No, I doubt he will listen to anyone, Grafia mused to herself.